All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite true crime talk show, the True Crime Talk Show, brought to you by Thought Riot Podcast. My name's Brendan.
And I'm Malia. Welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome everybody. You can find us on every major podcast platform at Thought Riot Podcast, spelt all the way out. At Thought Riot Podcast, spelt all the way out. You can find us on every social media platform: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, X, YouTube, all of them spelt all the way out at Thought Riot Podcast, or depending on the platform, Thought Riot Podcast, right? Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that thumbs up button, leave some comments under the video or in the chat, whatever chat you're on right now. I will tell you, we get normally a couple thousand. The other night we had the most viewers that we've ever had on at a single time. But most of our viewers are not on YouTube. So the chat that is the most active is on YouTube. We are on Kick right now. We are not streaming on Kick though, because we have to flip-flop back and forth. But we are on Kick, just not always streaming. You can only stream certain platforms together. So if you want to engage in the chat, you should come over to YouTube. I know we have a lot of international, and I was just checking it out. You can hop on our podcast and chat still international. So welcome everybody, and hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment under the video, and we are going to get right into it. I'll tell you, I'll give a brief intro, and then I'll let you kind of take it over for a minute while I do the beginning show type stuff. So one thing I did just want to tell everyone, that I have been slacking big time on the comments, okay? We have been very good for over a year responding to everybody's comment. Well, I have been slacking. We have been going through a lot. We are looking at a new studio, and we just got a brand new building. So expanded studio building, and it's going to be awesome, but we still have some more work to do on that. So it's going to continue taking a little bit of time. So just bear with us. I apologize, you guys, but it's for a good reason. It's for the best interest of the podcast and the show. But I will get back in that rhythm and routine of editing and commenting on every comment. So just continue leaving them. I am reading every single one of them right now. I just don't necessarily have their time to respond to every single one of them. What else? So one personal thing is, I've been saying this now for 3 episodes. We have been trying to get away from the Bryan Kohberger alibi, because I don't want to take a topic and just like grind it into the ground.
We've been talking about it for days, but it's just
new information. Like every day, it's
not necessarily new information. It's just like new ways to approach the topic, because so many people are talking about it that it's hard not to talk about. Like everybody, let's just be honest. All of us are obsessed with this case and seeing it through and wanting to know every detail, because it's so mysterious. Like, so what is going on behind the scenes?
That's not the reason for me. What gets me is when I hear science that isn't true. Okay. That bothers me.
That makes sense.
Right now it has to do with not all science, you guys, because look, I'm a firm believer that if you're trying to conduct a science experiment or theory, or come up with a hypothesis, like, you're going to be wrong more than you're right. I'm not talking about it's important that somebody's wrong and I need to call them on it. Look, I'm way more wrong than I'm right. Okay. What bothers me is that people do exactly what we do and go on search engines, and they're trying to do an awesome, really great thing and learn for themselves. And I am all about learned knowledge, and I believe people should be able to hop on a search engine and look that stuff up themselves. But the one downside is in technology and network technology specific, cellular technology specific, GPS technology specific, the internet cannot keep up with the evolution of those networks and sciences. So people are looking up old science where I'm like, oh no, don't bring that up. That is 5 years gone. Okay. That was so 5 years ago. So when I'm hearing stuff like that and it's being used to either back this alibi or question the alibi, I feel obligated to bring it up. You know?
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely some sciencey things we need to get into with the alibi again. You know, I recently watched Andrea Burkhart on Jesse Weber's podcast on Law and Crime, and there's literally 2 clips that I find interesting that I want to run by you and talk about.
Okay.
I want to talk about Sebastian Rogers again, because obviously we want to keep his face out there. But again, there's all this drama going on with the parents, and I just want to touch on it again. And what was the other thing? The new docs. How could I forget? The doc drop.
Yep.
So should we get into the documents first?
Yeah. Let's do the documents first. Then we'll go into Sebastian, and then we will touch on the science and the alibi.
Okay, what about the Andrea Burkhart clips? They're kind of part of the sciencey alibi thing, though.
Yeah.
So
yeah, let's do that. So and that'll give me a chance here. Hang on. Gosh, I can't wait for the multi-computer setup. It will be much nicer when I could just be like, hey, take control.
I'm really happy, as I'm sure some of you saw, we made a post on X and the community tab in on our YouTube channel, that there are a few new documents, and one of them is what?
Which one you want up?
We'll do order allowing defense surveys to continue first, because it's the most important.
Okay.
And then we'll touch on the other ones real quick.
I'll let you read that so I can do the beginning part.
Okay.
You want to pull it up real quick, and I'll just leave it right there. Okay.
I'm going to have to go full screen to be able to read that. Well, it'd help if you didn't scroll a million times, because there's a little bit of a lag. So on March 22nd, 2024, the state filed a sealed motion for order prohibiting further contact with prospective jurors absent leave of court. The same day, defendant Bryan Kohberger filed an objection to the state's motion with the promise of a forthcoming affidavit and memorandum in support of the objection. The court then entered a temporary order prohibiting both parties from contacting potential jurors about this case, including via third parties, until further order of this court. A hearing on the issue was set for April 4th, 2024. In the interim, the defense filed a memorandum in support of objection to the state's motion for order prohibiting contact with prospective jurors absent leave of court, with the declaration of Brian Edelman, PhD, attached, and a motion to rescind order for failure to provide due process. On March 29th, the state filed a declaration in response to defendant's motion to rescind order for failure to provide due process, a reply in support of motion for order prohibiting contact with prospective jurors absent leave of court, and objection to defendant's motion to rescind order for failure to provide due process. So essentially, this page is just Judge giving us the rundown on what led up to this.
Yep.
There's a lag, so... Okay, so on March 29th, 2024, The defense filed a reply in support of motion to rescind order for failure to provide due process. The April 4th hearing was open to the public because neither party requested that the hearing be sealed. At that time, the court heard arguments from both parties regarding a survey the defense had conducted in Latah County and wished to conduct in 2 additional counties. The state took issue with nine of the questions in the survey, which were read into the record in open court, and argued that asking those specific survey questions to potential jurors violated the court's revised amended non-dissemination order entered June 23rd of 2023. Specifically, the non-dissemination order prevents the attorneys in this case or their agents from making out-of-court statements which a reasonable person would expect to be disseminated by means of public communication and that relate to the following. 1, the identity or nature of evidence expected to be presented at trial or any sentencing phase of the proceedings. And 2, any information a lawyer knows or reasonably should know is likely to be inadmissible as evidence in a trial, and that would, if disclosed, create a substantial risk of prejudicing an impartial trial. The state asserted the questions violated these provisions because the surveyors are agents of the defense, and the defense bears the responsibility to honor the non-dissemination order. I call BS. They didn't violate the non-dissemination order. I don't think anything they did does any of that. None of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying he's saying that they did at this moment. He's just describing the non-dissemination order. I need you to scroll down.
Okay.
I'm on the defense. Yep. The defense argued that the questions in the survey were based on information obtained by defense expert Brian Edelman from reading and watching various news articles and broadcasts from both mainstream media and social media. The defense further argued that the questions did not violate the non-dissemination order because they constituted information contained in the public record. The defense argued that the public record encompasses all information in the media for public's consumption. The non-dissemination order expressly allows attorneys involved in the case and their agents may make extrajudicial statements, written or oral, concerning information contained in the public record. The non-dissemination order expressly allows attorneys involved in the case and their agents to make any extrajudicial statements, written or oral, concerning information contained in the public record.
Yeah, which essentially what they're saying is that you're not allowed to make up anything fake.
You can only talk about things that are in the public record, meaning the court docket.
Correct. Yeah. I think they're also saying that you can't make up anything fake.
Right. Well, obviously. At the conclusion of the hearing, the court ruled that the defendant's due process rights had not been violated because, 1, the order to pause the surveys was entered after defendant filed an objection to such order. And 2, the order was temporary and defendant was given notice and the opportunity to be heard at the hearing set shortly after the temporary order was filed. The Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution provides that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The right to procedural due process guaranteed under both the Idaho and United States Constitutions requires that a person involved in the judicial process be given meaningful notice and a meaningful opportunity to be heard. Due process requires the judicial proceedings be fundamentally fair. Procedural due process is not a rigid concept, but rather it is flexible and calls for such procedural protection as the particular situation demands. The court also kept the temporary order prohibiting contact with potential jurors in place and instructed defense counsel to consult with Brian Edelman to determine if there was a way the survey could continue while eliminating the concerning questions the state raised. The hearing was scheduled to continue April 10th, 2024. On April 10th, 2024, the parties again reconvened in open court. Again, neither party requested that the hearing be sealed. The questions at issue were again discussed, including the fact that some of the questions on the survey are not rooted in fact or supported by admissible evidence, but are simply rumors in the media and on social media, while other questions were formulated based on information from the public probable cause affidavit filed by the state. I'm sorry, but this whole thing about, oh, it's if it's fake or not, like if it's a fake fact or a real fact, and that's part of the gag order, is just, if that is the case, then why is the media, like, why are they letting all these falsities be spread all over the place? Like, if they care so much about that, why does it even matter? I think the whole point is that any information, whether true or false, some of it can be prejudicial to a defendant. Like, it doesn't matter if it's true or false. It can still prejudice a jury. Okay, so hold on. After a lengthy hearing, the parties remained at odds over whether the 9 questions at issue should be allowed to be asked in surveys conducted by the defense in other counties. The court now orders the following. Okay, guys, here we go. This is judge's order. 1, the public record as that term is in used in the as that term in used in the non-dissemination order means the public court record, i.e., information from public hearings and from documents filed in the case that are not sealed. 2, information that formed the basis for the 6 of the 9 questions at issue came from the probable cause affidavit, a document filed in this case that is not sealed. The non-dissemination order expressly allows attorneys involved in the case and their agents to make extrajudicial statements, written or oral, concerning information contained in the public record. Additionally, one of the questions was not based on admissible or inadmissible evidence, but instead asked about the feelings of members of Moscow community. Therefore, the defense did not violate the non-dissemination order by asking 7 of the 9 questions. As to the remaining 2 questions prior to the hearings, there was not information contained in the public record about these media items. However, these questions have now been read into the public record and discussed at length during the hearings, including the fact that these media items may not be true. Because the information is now in the public record, the court does not see any benefit in preventing the defense from continuing its surveys or requiring that the 2 questions at issue be eliminated. Bill Thompson screwed himself. Again, these questions and media items are now really part of the public record, and the non-dissemination order does not prohibit the attorneys involved in the case or their agents from making extrajudicial statements about information contained in the public record.
Yeah, they're trying to draw a line and distinction for, in my opinion, I feel like maybe they've had some oversight after the convening of that hearing and are looking at it from a different perspective, because right here, I feel like they're trying to draw a line in the sand.
This is Judge.
I know. And they're trying to draw a distinction. When I say they, I'm talking about the court. Judge is a representation of the court. So they're trying to draw a line in the sand and create a distinction between media items and the public court record, which, fine. I mean, those are different, but you've also got to understand that the court record is public information and the media is public information. So, like,
they're one and the same.
They aren't necessarily one and the same, but the people that are interested and would read the public record would also be listening to these mainstream media stories. So, like, what are we really protecting here? You know?
Yeah. I just find it really funny that it seems like the judge would have determined that these questions wouldn't have been able to be asked had this been a sealed hearing. Had Bill Thompson not read them out in court, I think we would be dealing with a very different set of circumstances. I think had Bill Thompson not read them in court, or if this had been a sealed hearing, the defense would not have been able to continue their survey using those 2 questions. He's saying, well, since Bill Thompson read them out in court and it's been discussed at length, it seems really pointless to now tell them they can't use them in the survey because they're public record now.
Yeah.
They were discussed in public hearings and in court records, which is hilarious to me because Bill Thompson, him reading them in court made him fail his end goal. Like his main objective was to get those taken out, and him reading them literally made it so that can't happen.
Yeah.
I have something to say about that here in a minute, but I'll finish reading this first. 4, the non-dissemination order also allows extrajudicial statements that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial undue prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client. Any such statement shall be limited to such information as is necessary to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. Defense counsel argued at length that the 2 media items not contained in the public record were the subject of extensive media coverage that was prejudicial to defendant, and that the survey questions asking potential jurors if they had read, seen, or heard these media items was necessary to support defendant's motion for change of venue, which is aimed at mitigating the effects of prejudicial pretrial publicity on defendant's right to a fair trial. 5, the goal of the non-dissemination order is to ensure a fair and impartial jury can be impaneled so the defendant receives a fair trial. If defense counsel believes asking these survey questions, which arguably contain prejudicial information or misinformation about defendant, is more beneficial than harmful, as defendant's expert testified, this court does not, at this juncture, have sufficient information or evidence to second guess that strategic decision by trial counsel. Amazing. The court's order prohibiting contact with prospective jurors until further order of court is lifted, and the defense may continue its surveys without modification to the survey questions. Any extrajudicial, I cannot say that word right. Any extrajudicial statements by any attorneys involved in this case or their agents must continue to comply with the non-dissemination order. So, side judge.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I mean, it's what I expected. Except I did expect him to add a clause to the beginning of those "have you read, seen, or heard" questions, saying none of these are statement of fact, which again is that would have been fine with me, but I just think it's silly that, you know, asking questions is considered disseminating information.
This is one of the documents where I would really like to watch a few different actual lawyers' perspectives on this document, because look, when I'm looking at it from a scientific perspective here, okay, this document is the end goal that we literally could have had in court 2 hearings ago. So
the first hearing, agreed.
The first hearing, this didn't need to be. The last hearing didn't need to be there. I mean, the expert testimony was absolutely needed, but that could have been done on the first hearing. Okay.
It could have. But he wouldn't have had that PowerPoint ready.
So when I look at this, it could just be my frustration at how much drama soap opera it felt like the last 2 hearings were. But like
what was the point?
I want to understand if this is common for Idaho, is what I want to understand, because this is not common for California cases, okay?
It's not common for any state I've ever lived in either.
You would not see this in a California case. What you would see is you would see some major grandstanding from the attorneys and lawyers trying to win their argument and perspective, but like, it was an all-out brawl at the first one where it was all 3 against all 3, 3v3, you know? And it just wasn't needed. It wasn't needed. It makes the case feel like there is some intentional heels being drug, and it just wasn't needed. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't help anything.
I agree. This was a delay that didn't need to happen, in my opinion. I think had they had the expert testify that first hearing, and if feelings weren't such a big deal, because that's really what I felt like happened that first hearing. It was a circus, and it was just like everybody reacting to each other's hurt feelings. It was really weird. If that had gone, I don't know, just more professionally, and people had not worried about their feelings and actually listened to the evidence and let the expert testify, I think this could have been decided in court. I think Judge could have heard the expert and decided this in court to allow it to continue.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right. Make sure you guys are keeping the chat respectful, all right? Remember, we're trying to clean it up. So anything adult related or whatever, I'm just going to delete it. Appreciate it. Okay, so second one here. Let me see. Amended order setting briefing schedule and hearing date for change of venue motion. Based on the April 10th, 2024 hearing, the court orders the following. A hearing on defendant's motion for change of venue will be held on June 27th, 2024 at 10 a.m. PT Pacific time. The hearing will be in person, open to the public, and streamed live on the court's YouTube channel. Defendant's opening brief, witness list, and any evidence the defense wishes to present in support of motion for change of venue must be filed by May 31st, 2024. The state's response brief, witness list, and any evidence in opposition to the motion must be filed by June 14th. Any reply by defendant must be filed by June 20th. All right, so we're making some progress here. Making some progress.
Yes. Yep. So we have another hearing to look forward to see what's going to happen with this change of venue. I do not, even though this was a good, what we just read about, the judge allowing the surveys to continue, I don't think that's necessarily an indicator of whether he's going to allow a change of venue. But I think he's going to. That's just my feelings on it. I think he will. But I'll be really disappointed if he does not. We'll see how this survey turns out with the other counties. We'll see how it all goes. But I just have a vibe he's going to, and that he will stay with the case. That's my guess.
This is one of those things I have a hard time committing what I think is going to happen. And the reason why is because of how different court is from state to state. So I don't know much about Idaho. And every time I see decisions being made in Idaho and hearings being conducted, I'm surprised a lot, you guys. So I'm skeptical saying, yeah, I feel like I expect this to happen because I don't know how common it is.
So it is not common.
Uncommon.
It is not common at all to grant a change of venue anywhere in the country. Nowhere. That is not a common thing. But I do believe this case will be granted it because I think that they want this done the first time, for one. And I think this could be a major appeal. Like, this could be a basis for appeal, in my opinion. He could argue a biased jury and things like that based off of what we already know of the survey. What we already know of the survey, I think, is damning enough for the community there that the majority of them are biased, that it could lead to an appeal. But I don't know. We'll see. I could be totally wrong. But yeah, that's just my feelings on it. I don't know why. I just get that feeling that it's going to be granted. And I think it needs to be. So we just put a poll up. Do you believe the trial venue will be changed? Just to let you guys know, in case you're not watching the chat, if you would like to vote, you can do that now. So one thing that I wanted to mention is, you know how, like, my question this whole time was, why was Bill so upset with those 2 questions? Now, obviously, people are going to say, well, because they weren't true. Because that's what he was saying, that those 2 questions in the jury survey were not true. The fact that Bryan Kohberger stalked one of the victims and that he followed them on social media.
He follows it up by saying there's multiple things in the PCA not true. Okay,
I
so
understand.
why is it okay for one agency or group of persons to do it and not another?
Do you know why I think he is so upset with those 2 questions specifically?
What?
I just thought about this earlier today, and it just dawned on me. You know how you described his behavior in those hearings as flailing?
Yeah. Yep.
I think it has to do with those questions specifically, because I think, and look, this also has to do with the alibi. I think what we're seeing with the alibi is a direct result of the fact that the state can't, exactly what you and I have been saying from the beginning. They can't prove he was there at the home 12 times in a row. They can't prove it. And Bill Thompson knows that. He's seen the discovery and he knows that. So them asking questions about that to him is disseminating information, this whole stalking information. And he was okay with it being said in the media because he can't really tell the media what to say or what not to say. Like, he can't do much about that.
Yeah.
But when Ann Taylor comes out here with a survey spreading, supposedly in his mind, disseminating this information among the public that Bryan Kohberger's a stalker, and to him it's coming from an official source, that is scaring the pants off him because he knows he can't prove that in court.
Yeah.
That's as soon as they get to court and people are thinking in the area that he's a stalker, and those jurors get in there and they're like, wait, they can't prove he's a stalker like at all.
Yeah.
Like, not at all.
Yeah,
I think that's a major hit to his case. I think he is freaking out about those questions because he knows those are things he can't prove at all. There is zero connection to the victims. There's zero following on social media. There's zero proof of him stalking the victims.
I
think that's partly why he was flailing. I really do.
I don't know if I should say this.
But that's just my personal opinion. Yeah, it weakens his case. Exactly. Personally, I don't know how they're going to argue this case without the stalking, but
well, there's some creators out there or experts that believe that he had stalking software.
What? Why are you giggling? Just say
because it's not possible. It's literally impossible. And I don't want to be mean or anything, though.
Don't be mean.
I'm not, but I can't help but laugh a little bit because of how impossible it is. It goes back to that original idea of people that are scared of technology. And I don't
just get all your laughs out for a minute.
I don't mean to laugh at it because I don't think it's funny. I think people that didn't grow up with technology when they were younger are truly scared of technology. But like this idea that Bryan Kohberger had all this stalking software on all of their electronics in their house, and like he was legitimately stalking them from a distance so that they could support the alibi if it does end up showing that he's not at the house, is just absurd and not possible. So
what is stalking software?
Like, I mean, it's too much to get into. It could be anything. It could be back-end Trojan, email reading, access to video cameras. But what people forget is there is always an in-person element to hacking. And if you're downloading or gaining access to somebody's electronics, that's AKA hacking, okay? And once you have access to their electronics, you can put stalking type software on it, okay? Or, spying software, accessing cameras, backends to the computer, the hard drive, what they have saved on their computer and everything. But like, it's not what you think it is, and it never is. You know, I've had people that I've talked to that are like literally shaking because they think their computer and every piece of technology in their home has been taken over by hackers from across sea in China. Listen, there's an in-person element to hacking. You cannot just hop on a computer and be like, you know what? I am going to target Moscow, Idaho, and I am going to target this computer on this street in this way, and I'm in China, and I am going to gain full access to your computer. There is always an in-person human element to hacking. Nobody can just gain access to the back end of your computer. At most, like, what's the most effective is email phishing. But again, that doesn't gain full access to your entire computer. So
I can't just be like,
think it's possible. That is no way. No way.
So I can't just be scrolling on TikTok and like come across somebody's profile and they're just like hack into my computer.
No. Here's the only thing that,
just because I watched a video.
Here's the only thing that would work in a situation like that, and this is what you got to be careful about, is people who work at these startup application companies, right? And apps are massive. Like, you can create an app and it takes you 2 weeks to create this app, and all of a sudden you're a multimillionaire, you know? What's that one game that's a child's game that like took no time at all? It took the creator like a month and they are now worth billions. I don't know what it's called. It's not, is it Roblox? I don't know. Anyways, there's a game out there that is, you know, pretty basic in its graphics and everything, but the guy is now a multi-billionaire, okay? And it only took him a month. Now, what you want to worry about is...
Are you sure it's not Minecraft?
It's not Minecraft.
It's Roblox?
Yeah, I think it's Roblox that I'm talking about. Yeah. I think it's Roblox. But is people who have access to those applications, when you download those apps, those new apps that don't have a lot of ratings, and a lot of people do, they give access to their devices that have those applications on there, and those apps in the fine print have you know, authorization in it to gain access to your
Wait, so you can still be hacked in Roblox?
No, I was just using Roblox as an example of why the app industry is so big right now.
Okay, so
I am not saying you can be hacked in Roblox. What I'm saying is applications with a massively growing industry and wildly successful industry is attracting a lot of younger people that have technology skills, but not a lot of responsibility. So they create these applications and end up using them in a non-respectful and safe manner, gaining people access to the back ends of these devices that have the applications on them.
So you got to be careful with applications.
You have got to be careful. Rule of thumb is you only download, you know, 4 and above rating and over 1,000, you know, ratings on there. So like, you know, is it possible? Yes. Does it seem like Bryan Kohberger had the access to be able to do these things? No.
Right, like, exactly. So that's what I wanted to kind of say too, is like, you know, people mention, well, the government watches everything you do. Well, that doesn't mean Bryan Kohberger can. He's not the FBI or NSA.
Yeah.
You know, like, he's not that. He may be like a really tech savvy person who was studying cloud forensics, but that doesn't mean that he's got NSA level spy technology to where he can hack into everybody's technology at the 1122 King Road home, like there's, and be able to see it all through their security cameras and see them through their TVs and through their phones and track them. Like
exactly.
It doesn't mean that.
That's why I'm saying that here too, because like, listen, you guys, there's a lot of people out there that know how to do it. Do I know how to gain access to people's devices? Absolutely. But again, like, the only reason I'm sharing that information is because it's not like, oh, I'm so angry, let me hop on my computer and hack this thing. No, it's a commitment. It is very hard to gain full access to electronics and hack people out there. It is not as simple as someone just sitting in front of a house and, you know, all of a sudden they have full access to all your networks, backends, routers, and every device connected to it. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So, and this idea that Bryan Kohberger was stalking them in that manner is a little silly to me, just because I understand how that works. And I want to be able to share with people why that's not possible.
That's why the 4chan theory, I've never thought it was Bryan Kohberger. And people, you know, who do think that the 4chan writer was Bryan Kohberger think that he was stalking them online, and that's how he knows all those intimate details of their relationships with each other. For one, I don't think you can know all of those intimate details if you were stalking somebody online. It's too much. Two, I don't think he was doing that kind of stalking online.
No politics.
But anyway, I think it's implausible to say, well, he was hacked into them and stalking them online, and that's how he knew all that stuff. And that's how he wrote the 4chan posts. I don't know. It just doesn't seem. It doesn't even seem like he had enough time to be able to do all of that.
Yeah, listen.
He didn't live there very long.
I don't know what his level of technology is. Is it possible to be able to gain full access to their networks and get software downloaded on their computer to be able to, you know, effectively spy on them? Yes, but listen, these were young kids who knew what they were doing, okay? I don't think they have an open network there. I don't think that they left all their devices unlocked and accessible. You know, technology is evolving on its own, like iPhones, for instance. iPhones now have a built-in revolving IP, okay? So that it's constantly changing, making it harder for somebody to track down a specific device. And that's already coming built into our phones with some of the latest updates. So it's just not possible. It's not possible. The level of commitment, I don't see it. I don't see it. Like, in order to be able to do that, he would have had to have broken in, gained access to their router, figured out whatever their password was, okay? And there's only a couple ways to do that. Then gain access to every device, because each device probably has a password on it of some sort. And then if they have anything related to two-factor authentication, then more than likely he wouldn't have been able to get into it. So, like, what he would have been watching, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. You know? I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. What else did we have on here?
So there is the unsealed order from the state.
Okay, so I see that here. It is so we have motion for order prohibiting contact, redacted. Order sealing.
That's it.
This one?
That's it.
Okay.
The other ones are just telling us that it has been unsealed. So it was originally sealed. And this is, you know, Bill Thompson saying his issues with the survey, essentially.
Oh, okay. Okay. And that came out on the 18th, right before the judge's response.
And yeah. And Ann Taylor asked Bill Thompson to redact a very specific sentence in this order, which is interesting. We don't know what it is, but we'll get to that part.
All right. So, excuse me. State of Idaho versus Bryan C. Kohberger. Comes now the state of Idaho by and through the Latah County prosecuting attorney, and respectfully moves this court pursuant to this court's revised amended non-dissemination order for an order prohibiting the defense from contacting prospective jurors about this case without first obtaining permission from the court. The state's recent the state recently became aware of a telephone survey being conducted in Latah County related to this matter when some of its recipients of such calls contacted the prosecuting attorney's office, which still weird, you guys, to express concern about the survey. The Moscow Police Department has also received calls expressing concerns about such calls and questions as to whether the police department was responsible for the survey. See Exhibit A, Moscow Police Department reports. Just this week, the state came into possession of a transcript of one such call, see Exhibit B, and a summary of another who received such a call. Based on the transcript, the survey goes beyond soliciting information and provides those being called with specific information about the case. For example, the person conducting the survey asked the following questions. Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania? Okay, this was live TV, you know, I think we've already determined that. Have you read, seen, or heard if police found a knife sheath on the bed next to one of the victims? Have you read, seen, or heard that DNA found on the knife sheath was later matched to Bryan Kohberger? Have you read, seen, or heard if Bryan Kohberger owned the same type of car recorded on video driving in the neighborhood where the killings occurred? Exhibit B, the state raised the issue with the defense counsel and then met with defense counsel on March 21st, 2024. Defense counsel confirmed that the defense retained a jury research company to assess community knowledge and opinions about this case. The state expressed its concerns and notified defense counsel that it would be raising its concerns with the court. The state requested that the defense halt further communication with potential jurors until the court could weigh in. Defense counsel represented that the surveys were already mostly done. The state's concern with the surveys commissioned by the defense is that it may violate the court's revised amended non-dissemination order in a manner that could make selecting a jury in Latah County more difficult. As relevant here, the order expressly prohibits any agent of the prosecuting attorneys and defense attorneys from making any out-of-court statement, which a reasonable person would expect to be dissemination by means of public communication that relates to the identity or nature of evidence expected to be presented at trial or any sentencing phase of the proceedings. The order also prohibits the disclosure of any information a lawyer knows or reasonably should know is likely to be inadmissible evidence in trial, and that would, if disclosed, create a substantial risk of prejudicing an impartial trial. Despite these express prohibitions, the defense commissioned a survey that included potential jurors in Latah County, and as part of the survey conveyed the identity or nature of the evidence expected to be presented at trial. Blacked out. More problematic still, the defense commissioned survey also include the survey-specific rumors, which the defense should have known are likely to be inadmissible in trial. For example, the question that implies that Bryan Kohberger had followed one of the victims on social media. The survey also pointed respondents to out-of-courtroom coverage of this case that almost certainly contains more rumors and misinformation that would not be admissible at the trial. Have you listened to any true crime broadcast or watched any shows on YouTube that covered this case? For example, the King Road killing. Given that the survey of potential jurors seems to violate the order, the state respectfully requests this court enter an order specifically prohibiting the defense from contacting potential jurors, I assume. What? Given that the survey of potential jurors seems to violate the order state. Yeah, we just read that. That's weird. Oh, that's because they had to create an edit. Okay, I got you.
You know what? Why couldn't they just black out the original?
Yeah, I don't know.
Doesn't make any sense.
Well, it could be because when you black it out and then you make a photocopy, a lot of times you can still see it a little bit. So the only way to do it would be to have your copy and then put literally paper over it and then do it again. But I'm guessing there. I'm guessing. But yeah, this is interesting. Nothing new. I don't necessarily want to regurgitate everything on here again. But I don't know. When I'm reading this, after all the knowledge and details and conversations and content creators and mainstream media and everything else that has been heard about this, do you still think they did not violate the dissemination order?
Oh yeah, I don't think they did at all. Of course not.
Yeah. So I think what made them not is that they presented the questions to the prosecutors or the state before they sent this out. That's what a lot of people that talk about this keep forgetting. They want to lean on the fact, like, how could Ann do that? Well, Ann got the sign off before they did it.
She did.
She got the sign off by the state before they did it.
I know.
So
She literally said she gave them a transcript and they were like, okay,
it's good to go.
it's good to go.
Yeah.
And then she goes and does it, and then they throw a fit.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. I wonder if gosh, was it people contacting Bill that started freaking him out? So one thing that is stated in there is that whoever called in was wondering if the police were doing it. They wondered if the MPD was conducting this survey.
Yeah.
Do you think do you think we misinterpreted that wrong? And maybe it was the public afraid of the police meddling in the case and distrusting the police. Is that a distrust of the police or a distrust of the defense?
I mean, I'm a little, I don't know. I'm a little shocked that the locals are so invested that they felt like they needed to call after the survey to find out who was conducting it.
I find that so strange.
It is very strange. And I don't think that should be ignored, that you receive a phone call on your phone and you're a random person in the public in the area, and their first thought is, I need to get down to the bottom of this. Let me call the police and see if this is a police-led survey.
It makes me wonder if it's somebody involved with Green or the university.
So 57, do you believe... Ooh, it just went away. Is it going to post?
It posted.
Do you believe the trial's venue will be changed? 56 said yes. 21 said no. 21 said, I don't know.
Most agree with me, at least in that poll. You think it's the locals backing the law enforcement? Well, why would they think, oh, could this be Moscow Police Department conducting this survey? Like, that's a weird thing to think. Why would they think the police are doing it?
I agree. I think it's a very strange thing. I don't completely understand it. I don't get it.
I understand. I feel the same way. I interpreted it as people who believe he's guilty, people who back the prosecution, people who, because that's weird to me. I don't know I have never met the type of person who's like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure that, Bill Thompson knows about this survey. This is, such a big deal. Like, I've never met anybody who would do anything like that. That would literally reach out because they got a survey.
Yeah.
What? It's a survey.
Yeah.
It's so weird. So for them to then assume, is it the police department doing it? Like, who called in and said any of this?
Yeah.
Who? It's just so
I
strange.
agree with you. I just think it's really weird that they believe that they are invested in this area enough that they have the confidence to reach directly out to, a state's prosecutor or law enforcement to find out what's up with this survey.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel like they were calling to get approval.
Mm-hmm.
That's my auto reaction of this situation.
Right.
Is when I first read this, I was like,
well, it was a lady calling for her son.
Approval?
It was a mom calling because her son got the call too. That's one of the people that called in.
It's just really weird.
So why would a mom call in because her son got the survey? That's weird.
I agree with you.
But yeah, I absolutely do not think that Ann Taylor broke the gag order whatsoever, because I don't think asking questions is a statement. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, very strange. All right, let's see here. Do we have anything else?
No, not with the motions. Not that I've seen.
Just so the order sealing exhibit. Okay, so that's just attached. Defendant's fifth motion to compel. Order unsealing state's motion for order prohibiting contact. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to see a 15th supplemental request for discovery too, but it's just not out yet, but we will see it soon.
Yes. All right, you guys. So we have some more topics to cover. Another Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger topic, but we are going to briefly get into the Sebastian Rogers topic and go through some updates there before we get back into the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger alibi, where we are going to continue talking about the evidence in that alibi, okay? Because quite a few people have come out with some what they thought was helpful evidence, and it isn't. And I'm not coming at anybody sideways by bringing this up. Without the experience of networks, you wouldn't know that. Okay, so I hope that people take it, appreciate it. That's all. I just hope people appreciate the information and not see it as me trying to like discredit what they're bringing forward. You know what I mean?
No, we just read the new doc. That was the first one that we read. So if you guys hopped on a little bit late, we read the brand new document that allowed the survey to continue. We already went through all of that. And we kind of went backwards. That was just like the most important one. So we did it first.
Yeah, we went backwards.
We did. So we are on day 57 of Sebastian Rogers being missing. And if you guys don't know, if you haven't been following the case, a really quick rundown. Sebastian Rogers went missing, or at least was reported missing, on February 26th of this year. From Sumner County in Tennessee, Hendersonville to be exact. And that night he was there with his mom. They were, going to bed. The last you heard of him was a loud thump in his room, and then claims that he left barefooted out the front door with a flashlight, because nothing was missing but him and apparently a flashlight. He's a 15-year-old boy with autism and a chromosome deletion. There's been a lot of drama. There's been, the sides of families like going to war, it's been a lot. So recently there was a vigil, and we played a video that came from that vigil the other day, which was Seth Rogers, Sebastian Rogers' biological father, claiming he is going to be uniting forces with the bio mom and the stepdad, which is Katie and Chris Proudfoot. There's been a lot of contention between these people. They've been at each other's throats because, let's be honest, because I feel like a lot of people forget this. Seth was very cordial in the beginning. He said nothing bad about them at all. First several weeks, said nothing bad, was very respectful, nothing, until he got cut off. Until they cut off communication with him. Then it changed. It started to flip as he was getting more tired, because he's out searching, boots on the ground, literally searching. And he hasn't gotten sleep. He barely gets sleep. So the more tired he's gotten, and again, we're on day 57 of this man getting hardly any sleep. He's getting more tired. He's getting more fed up. He's getting more desperate, and they're cutting off contact and taking off in a camper to go stay in Mississippi instead of being there helping. So naturally, he starts spilling his guts, okay, and pointing fingers, essentially, while also saying, I think he wanted to raise these red flags. because he wants help. Like, he was all over so many podcasts just looking for any bit of information to go off of. He's hired so many different private investigators. And honestly, I think he needs not a social media private investigator. Because I think that's all he's gotten so far. And that's no shade to anybody. He needs a real PI, okay?
Yeah, I'm sure there's some social media real PIs, but just different approach.
Different approach.
This case,
I'm not saying social media isn't important. It is important, but it's causing a lot of confusion at the same time.
This case isn't a case that is heavy in the technology.
It doesn't appear to be that way right now.
So you would be better off with an in-person, old school, feet on the street, talking to people, investigator, in my opinion. So.
Okay. So after all this blaming back and forth, after you guys know, if you've been following, you know, Katie and Chris Proudfoot have made a ton of inconsistent statements, done a bunch of things that are just had the red flags going off. Okay. Everybody was looking at them like, what are you doing? Now, there are people who are, you know, picking sides and stuff. I never wanted to pick a side. I just wanted to talk about the red flags and aid in getting this little boy's face out there and getting him found so he could come home to his family. Well, after Seth made this video saying, look, we're teaming up. Everybody needs to put their egos aside. And if you're not down with it, then F off. People got really, really upset. And there's been a ton of rumors that there was an altercation between Chris and Seth in the beginning, and that it was very heated and there were, curse words flying, and then it settled down and was better. And now I don't know what's true or not, but it does seem like that is the consistent narrative, except for Seth. Seth is the only one saying it wasn't like that. Everyone else who says that they saw it or were in that area, were at the vigil, says that it was heated and then calmed down. So I don't know. But people have been calling it out saying, Chris has blackmail on him, this and that. One really interesting thing is that, yes, I think it was yesterday, Seth went on Peter Hyatt's channel, which is, I think he's like a profiler or something like that. He focuses on linguistics a lot, like the way, the words people use, behaviors and things like that.
Okay.
Seth sat on that channel and said just about nothing until like a while in. And this whole time Peter is talking and literally pointing blame at Katie and Chris. And I'm thinking, wait, how is he coming out here and saying that they're a united front now and working together when he's going on this channel that's directly pointing blame at them? And then they get in this discussion that's really interesting where they're talking about...
Seth does need the behavior panel. That would be awesome.
Huh?
I was just responding to someone as you're talking, because we're talking about Seth and just some things that could help him in his search.
What's the behavior panel?
I don't want to.
The show?
Yeah,
they've already done one on the mother and father,
but not with Seth.
Okay. Anyway, so I thought it was a bit odd. Like, why did he go on there? And yes, I know he was there. He said he was just there to listen. He just wanted to be on there to listen. But being on that show, if you're just there listening and you're not saying that's not true, it seems like you're co-signing it. That's how it's going to appear to the public, which I think is confusing to everybody. You have so many people upset that he said he was going to, unite with them. And then he comes on a show where the person talking is pointing nothing but blame at Katie specifically and Chris. Well, they get into a conversation that I actually found really interesting where you guys, and I suggest go check out Peter Hyatt's channel, go watch the video for yourself, come to your own conclusions. But there's a part where they start talking about Katie and how she's the key to solving this. And essentially, I got the vibes, okay, from what was said, that it almost feels like maybe Seth and Chris worked out their differences and not him and Katie necessarily. And that I almost wonder if, like, they started talking about the relationship not working out, like maybe Katie and Chris would split up.
Okay.
And that would actually be helpful in finding out what happened and talking about, I almost got this vibe that Seth and Chris are teaming up and that they think that Katie knows more than she's saying.
Oh, gosh.
That is the vibe I'm getting. But again, I suggest watch it yourself and come to your own conclusions.
That's so subjective, though. I have such a hard time with these topics. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think they need to be talked about. Look, this is... Unfortunately, anytime a family member goes missing or gets hurt, the statistical probability of it being a close family member within, the direct family is insane. It's so high that it's going to be a family member that's close, that lives in the same household. And then the second most likely is a distant family member. So somebody that is a family member and lives outside of the household. So, the downside to that is you get so much drama, so much subjectivity, and people start pointing fingers because humans don't deal with stress very well, which a lot of times just clouds these subjects up even more, And I think it's important to talk about them. I really, really, really do. And I think we need to continue talking about them. But I do want to make sure that as we're talking about them, we're creating an understanding and outline that, none of these are objective topics. These are very subjective. Objective are hard, concrete, factual, like numerical based evidence, right? Like he went missing from this time to this time. We don't know what time to pinpoint it, but we know it was from here to here. The last she claims she heard him was at this time. He has been missing for this many days. It is objective evidence is evidence that remains true no matter how you look at it, who looks at it, where you look at it, whatever, right? So when I'm thinking of that would blow me away because none of the three of them have been working together very good. And the mother and stepfather have been a single unit the entire time. They have been glued to the hip. So to think that the birth father, which remember, their relationship ended in a massive burning pile of doo-doo, okay? Like there were claims that she said that that he was abusing Sebastian and her. Police came out with weapons. There was this whole accusation back and forth. CPS was involved. They ended up being able to prove that wasn't true, or not prove that it wasn't true, but prove there was no evidence of that, and it ended up getting it dropped. And, he had resentment towards her because of that. And then she made really bad decisions. Like, this is literally the outline of a soap opera, you guys, minus the comedy relief. Okay.
There's only subjective evidence right now in this case, though. There's nothing, there's no objective evidence at all, which is why everybody is stuck in the subjective, because there's nothing to There's nothing to
go on.
There's nothing to go on at all. There's no leads. There's no nothing for the public. And I just really hope that law enforcement has a lead and is figuring things out, because it doesn't feel like it right now. But we've been wrong before, like in the Oklahoma, Kansas situation going on with the two mothers, Veronica Butler.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody thought, oh my gosh, the police are not out here looking for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people were like, what is going on here? And then boom, arrest, boom, bodies, boom, it's them.
Yeah.
And the court process is happening now. Like, it happens so quick.
And
I hope that they have a lot more going on behind the scenes than we know, which I thought was happening. But now, since it's going on for so long, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
One thing I did want to say, you guys, is I said this in the beginning a little while ago. You know, we have a couple thousand people on other platforms. So one, we don't have anything that transitions other languages. So I've seen a couple comments come through in Korean. I've seen a couple comments come through in Russian. I do not have software that auto translates that. So I can't respond. I can't see what you're saying, unfortunately. If you want to engage in an active chat, an English chat, though, that is on YouTube. So you just got to go to YouTube and search Thought Riot Podcast, Thought Riot Podcast, and you will find it. So, yeah, yep. But yeah, what else you got?
Nothing. I mean, I just thought that was a strange thing. And, you know, I can see Seth is in a lot of pain. I can see that he is, honestly, I'm a bit concerned about him. I don't think he's coping in the best way. Not to judge him. There is no judgment here whatsoever. I will never judge anybody for, you know, not coping great. Like, he's going through one of the hardest things there is that you could possibly ever go through. But I think he's having a really hard time coping, a really hard time. And I hope that he gets really good support that he leans on, so that he can make it out of this on the other side, no matter what happens, no matter how this ends. And I would just urge everybody to be careful with rumors and speculation about the parents going forward, because I think we have no idea what the heck is going on here at all. Like, I think everything we've seen, I think it's really hard. I just don't think we know anything.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the subjective, but just to be honest, I think we genuinely know nothing about this case.
Yep.
And I'm just really praying the cops do know more than they're letting on. And they know, I hope they know a heck of a lot more than we do, because it's a whole lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, please keep sharing Sebastian's face. I just really hope that he is alive and safe out there somewhere and will be found for his sake. And, you know, Team Sebastian.
Yes, absolutely. And for those of you that didn't know, or our huge viewership in international, Sebastian Rogers is the one that is on the screen right now. So really sad situation. And, you know, I just hope they find him, man. I just hope that that he's one of those children that chose to leave on his own,
ran away,
and he is taking care of himself, and he will be found. Okay, that's what I hope. I hope he is not in the hands of a menace. And you know, something horrible happening. That's such a weird thing to hope for, but like, again, looking at a bad situation, at least you can have the best of a bad situation, right? Because the bad is the fact that he's gone at all, but at least he could be gone by his own volition instead of at somebody else's hands, somebody scary, you know?
Of course. And I wanted to say that, and I want to mention this again really quick before we move on, is that I saw earlier somebody saying that, you know, they're not sure that even if Sebastian were to be found, if he should be allowed to be in any of the parents' custody. And I think that's really harsh, like a really harsh thing to say, that you don't believe that, you know, law enforcement or anybody involved would allow him to be in any of the parents' custody. There's zero proof any parents have actually done something abusive to him. We have none. We have very subjective narratives. We have no proof at all that he was abused by any of the parents. We have Chris saying he hit him with a belt once. Spanking is a very normal thing in the South still.
Yeah.
Among certain communities. And it's still not considered abuse in a lot of communities.
I'm really surprised by that. I don't know why.
I just think it's harsh and
say that.
Kind of messed up.
I agree with you. I think it is really messed up and harsh.
The social media narratives going around, the speculations, the things that have been talked about, they're all red flags. But again, we don't have proof that he was abused or not loved or unwanted. We have major red flags of something weird going on. But I think people need to remember exactly how hard it is to even get a kid taken away from a parent. It's pretty hard. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever looked up statistics on parents fighting for custody. Like, say, a dad coming in and trying to take away a kid from the mom because the mom is abusive or neglectful. Yeah. It's hard.
I got to be honest. I do not believe that if the parents are not involved, I do not believe that he should be taken from them. Just saying. I don't.
No, and I have my issues with some of the things about Chris Proudfoot.
I have issues with things I've seen, but I don't know if that is big enough to remove a child from their mother and father, because that is a huge deal. Okay. And I don't want to get into the political aspects of it, but one of the biggest issues in America right now, without going political, okay, and there's no way you guys could probably guess my where I stand politically, but one of the biggest things wrong in America, in the world, primarily America right now, is children not having their parents in their lives. So at all cost, as long as they're not being abused, as long as the parents aren't creating lifelong trauma, that they're being SA'd, that they're not being hit, that they're having all their needs met, like, a child should remain with the parents.
Dude, one of the issues in America is that there's not enough adults per kid. Like, you have single moms, and that's when you start looking to how many adults, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with single moms. All I'm saying is, if you're a single mom, make sure there's plenty of trustworthy adults in your kid's life other than you.
Well, they need not even only single moms, though. Even
two-parent households with, like, say, 2 kids.
There
needs to be more adults than just you two parents.
When I was doing my research on serial killers in college, when I was writing a paper, I was digging into the psychology and sociology of the areas where said serial killer came from. Okay. And as I was researching that, I came across a statistic that talked about how many adults are needed in an average child's life, and the amount of adults that kids look up to, even if they have a traditional home with a mother and father not divorced raising them, they still need an additional 4 to 6 other adults to look up to in their lives.
Well, see, I heard 4, and I was researching
at least 4 outside of the parents.
No, I thought it was just 4 period per child. No, 4 per child.
That's not the statistic I read. I read that 4 to 6
is maybe
outside of the parents.
Okay. Well, I mean, I heard 4 per kid, that provides the best, like, regulation emotionally and things like that. And I was researching it because of, like, addiction and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that, I mean, that whole "it takes a village" thing, there's a lot of truth to that. There really, really is. Kids that grow up in supportive communities where it's kind of like a village end up being, like, a much more emotionally regulated. They have there's a lot of benefits to it. but yeah, it is hard to trust people around your kids. I totally get it.
Oh, dude. Yeah, don't trust people.
Don't.
Absolutely never trust people. What I'm thinking when I talk about like those other people are like family members or family friends, which again, you still need to be aware of.
You gotta pay close
because,
attention
because people change. I'm not saying don't trust them. Trust but verify, right? Trust but verify everything. So you can have your eyes open and be watching for red flags and things like that, while allowing them to be a role model.
Because
child.
Trust me, I get it. Trusting kids, I mean, trusting people around kids with all the stuff we see in true crime, it's horrifying. I totally get it. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, you guys. Let's dig back in here. I'm wondering if I should give direct names or not. One of them I will, just because we have a good content creator relationship. But I had seen, and do you know if Get a Clue did a video about the cell stuff? Or just the network technology being unreliable?
I think he did a video, but I don't think I saw it. I only saw it was like a poll or like a question, like a quiz maybe that he posted.
Okay, so I'll pull it up real quick. So Get a Clue is a true crime content creator.
Well, only Idaho 4.
Okay. Only Idaho 4 content creator, and
it's because he only cares about this case. He has said many times that he will only talk about this case.
I need to vote. Okay, so Get a Clue. Okay, Get a Clue. And you can find him at Get a Clue 429. Okay. Okay, so which of the following is correct in regards to the use of cellular service? Which of the following is correct in regard to the use of cellular service data analysis in geolocating someone at any given point in time? So his answer is it's effectively junk science and thus junk evidence. And then I believe there's some kind of link here or something that I did check out, you guys. And I, for whatever reason, cannot access that.
Do you need me to send it to you?
Yeah.
I think I still have it.
I guess if you would, so that I can share the example to people and post the link to everyone. But look, as long as I'm remembering correct, I read it earlier. That report is from 2019, you guys. That report is from 2019. Can anybody tell me what has changed in network technology? I shouldn't present like that. I feel like I'm training people again. But
there you go.
Does anyone know what has changed from 2019 to 2020?
5G. 5G.
So yes, 5G and 3G.
Oh yeah,
being cut off.
3G is no more.
And this is why it's important. Okay, this is why it's important.
I understand why Get a Clue thinks like this, though. I get it. I get why he has.
Everyone would think like this unless you have the training specifically in network technology.
Well, I don't know if everyone would think like this because, like, you know, you had Chris McDonough from the other night acting like it was so reliable and such an easy, simple thing that they just gotta. He did. I thought he did. He was like, you just got to ping to one tower and they can see how far you are. And then bam, they got your location. He didn't.
The part that I saw, and I haven't watched that whole thing, is that Chris McDonough said that he could be falsely pinging way over here, even though he's in the Moscow area.
Okay, maybe I need to go back and watch the whole thing.
That can't happen. Okay, so let me give you guys the rundown on why this is important. Okay, and I will pull this up. Did you share that link?
Yeah, I just sent it to you on Discord.
Okay, hang on, you guys. Okay.
.3G being obsolete means Bryan's car couldn't use Starlink anymore in 2022.
Yeah, his car didn't have a GPS chip in it anyways.
Oh, it couldn't have been compatible with Starlink at all.
No. Okay, you guys. So I have a couple issues with this. Okay, so there's this idea right now going around that Bryan Kohberger's phone could ping, that he could be in Moscow, but his phone pings will show him in Huawei. Do you know why that's impossible? Because there's no more 3G.
So how did 3G used to make that possible?
3G was a lower wave frequency. It needed to carry less data. So what that means is that you're getting the same amount of frequency at a lower wavelength traveling further. So 3G, I could be wrong on this, you guys. I haven't had to deal with 3G in quite a long time, but I believe 3G could effectively go 20 to 50 miles. You know how far 4G goes? At best, 20% of that.
What about 5G?
Even shorter.
Oh, interesting.
Even shorter. So everyone has this idea that, look, cell phones go so far. The coverage goes so far. No, it doesn't, since 3G is null and void. It is no more. It wasn't anymore in 2022. Here, let me see if I can pull up.
So 2019, when was 3G done away with?
In 2022. Okay, so let me see.
Wait, so theoretically, could there have been 3G in November?
No. In November and December, 3G was turned off, but there has to be no devices connected to it before it's turned off. There was no 3G being used.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's because of my rotating IPs. Okay, so
someone said, I thought 3G was phased out at the end of 2022.
Yep, it was. But it was already out of use in the beginning of 2022.
Okay, so they had to make sure no more phones were using it first.
Well, no more any items. It's not just phones, but yeah. Okay, so using the flat method. Okay, so the flat coverage. So we're scaling 3G based on perfect conditions. Okay, so if we're assuming that it's perfect conditions, if we're assuming it's perfect conditions, then we're going to assume 2G, 3G, and 4G is all perfect conditions. Okay, so for 3G, it can go up to 20 to 50 miles. Okay, 4G can go at best, and I'm wrong. Okay, it says here that it can go up to 30% of that. 30% of that 4G LTE does. So if we'll just keep everything to the shortest distance, okay? So 3G can go 20 miles on the flat method approach, assuming everything is perfect. 20 miles, okay, for on the smaller end of the scale. Well, 4G then can go 6 miles maximum.
Wow.
Yeah. So it requires more towers. 5G, especially 5G Ultra, you're lucky if it goes a mile.
Okay.
So hang on, let me see here.
So this is, I know you have more to get into with this, but what Kay Smith is saying is the sentiment I see being spread at the moment is, she said, or he, my whole thing is, why is everyone even debating this? And specifies his pictures. That means longitude, latitude, which equals GPS location. Like, they are going to be using GPS, not cellular network data.
Yeah. Okay, so just so you can see, this isn't even a good enough one because this is in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, the cell coverage area radius was set as followed. So 35 kilometers for 2G, 10 kilometers for 3G, 5 kilometers for 4G. And that's 4G, not 4G LTE. 4G was phased out and was transitioned into LTE. So now we just have 4G LTE and 5G. And these ranges were set as the technical limitations of GSM network results in a maximum range of 35 kilometers. So interesting for sure. Now going into,
so your whole point is that you can't be, 30 miles away from a tower and be pinging to it.
correct. And I want to talk about why people can't debunk it like this, because listen, network technology is reliable, you guys. It is reliable as long as there is enough coverage to give us enough data to pinpoint the location. But it is reliable. It is not junk science.
Okay.
It's way more reliable than an eyewitness testimony.
Okay, now what about GPS? Is it more reliable than GPS?
So one thing you got to remember about, they're two completely different things. One thing you got to remember about GPS is GPS in perfect conditions has the ability to locate you down to 12 inches.
In perfect conditions.
In perfect conditions.
And now what about cellular triangulation? How pinpoint can that get?
It depends on
perfect conditions.
It depends on how many towers are overlapping you. But can cellular triangulation pinpoint you down to 12 inches? Yeah, absolutely. It can watch you walk around a car. It can watch you walk around a city block. But you have to have enough towers overlapping it to confirm the triangulation to give you enough RTT to give you a reliable location. So the YNW Melly case, we use this a lot, but YNW Melly was under 10 towers. 10 towers. And the prosecution said they watched him walk around the car, and they can absolutely with 10 towers.
So can the metadata still use the satellite coordinates without tower signal and later update itself when signal returns?
Yes. Yes. Yep. It can. It can. So I just want people to understand that, look, I do not believe this is junk science, okay? And remember, you guys, I say this all the time, no matter how many of you people out there want to believe that that I'm a pig-headed fool, which I am. Okay, I'll give you that. But that I need to be right. I'm not looking to be right. I don't want to be right. All I'm hoping to do is give enough information for people to want to go learn on their own. That's my ultimate goal here, is to just be a carrot, to lead people to their own learned knowledge, right? Because I don't believe in IQ. I don't care about IQ. I don't believe it. I don't care about intelligence. What I care about is learned knowledge, okay? how much knowledge can we learn in a lifetime to effectively focus and manage, look into, investigate the things in our lives that we enjoy.
Yeah, and no, 5G was not in its infancy in 2022. It was widely rolled out among the whole country.
Yep. It wasn't in the whole country in 2022.
No, but it was widely rolled out.
The technology was out there.
Yeah. It started really being rolled out in 2019. Now, is there a way to tell if 5G was in the Moscow area during this time?
I guarantee it is.
So you're
guaranteed.
So guarantee. Okay, but
guaranteed that mini cell that's above the, what tower is that? Theophilus Tower. I can almost guarantee that's 5G. And the reason why is because when 5G was first rolled out, there were specific areas that were targeted by all networks, carriers, by who are the cell phone ones? Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, I'm just trying to think of all these carriers. Okay.
That three is fine.
But there's a million. There were a bunch of them back then. And during that time, they all focused and targeted the metropolitan areas or areas where there was a lot of people or students. One of the focus areas for all of the all the national network companies is to focus on universities. So what they would do is they would put their 5G in one of the first rollouts of 5G out there, and they would put them in living spaces like Theophilus Tower, and they would offer the 5G to the people living in Theophilus Tower. Because remember, it's not only about how far the data will reach to give you coverage, it's about how much data it can hold. The capacity.
I don't even think whether 5G was there or not even really matters, because we just talked about how 4G only goes 30% of what 3G went. So we know there was no 3G. So Correct. It was all 4G and 5G, maybe just 4G, but definitely 4G, meaning you could not ping 30 miles away. It's impossible.
Yep. I am a
so
hamburger.
I think whether 5G was there or not doesn't really matter.
Oh, I'm not a hamburger. That's offensive. Okay. That's super offensive. I'm a hot dog. All right. But you're right.
Yeah. So,
so why is this important?
Yeah. Why is this important?
Okay. It's important because the distance between Moscow and the crime scene and Wawa Park is too far for any network coverage to go from 1122 to Wawa.
So he couldn't be in Wawa and be pinging at the crime scene.
Okay. Technically, can he? But how likely is that? Very slim. And I can go into why technically he could show that, but it's just like slim to none. Okay. Slim to none.
Okay. Now,
so
we know.
Could he give a false ping at the 1122 or Moscow area while he's in Wawa or flipped? No, that cannot happen.
Okay. So
he's got to be close within a range of 5 to 10 miles.
So what about, could the police have mistakenly had him do this route? So this goes into what Andrew Burkhart was actually arguing and talking about them pinging to one cell phone tower and looking at that and like, okay, he's pinging to this one at Paradise Ridge and he's in this sector of that, you know, like we were talking about, like, so he's pinging and the round trip time is this time. And she said, theoretically, you can see somebody moving if they're pinging from this tower and then this tower and then this tower, even if they're not being triangulated. And then they can kind of come up with an idea of somebody moving in a certain area
with one tower.
And she said that's what she thinks is going on in this PCA is that they're looking at a single or a second tower. Like there's not enough towers.
Right.
So, and they're coming up with this really rough estimate because he's moving through these different towers and estimating like what they think his route would have been.
Okay.
And could him driving down to Wawaway Park and, you know, driving around southwest of Moscow, is it possible he still could have pinged to that Paradise Ridge Road tower, and those towers over there, making it appear he was over in that area. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying.
Could they have mistaked that?
In order for them to mistake it, I need to know what tower he was connected to, okay? And I think maybe we have it in this video here. Give me 1 second. I will try and pull it up. And one other thing that I want to touch on is somebody suggested a video out there that had some expert on. Do you know who it was? And they said that this expert said that there was 6 towers in the area. Oh, wait.
Huh?
I think it's Discord. Hang on. Is where I saw the actual confirmation of it. Let me see. Okay, so who is this? It looks like it is a TNT video. Okay, so IT specialist from U of I, Idaho, claims there are at least 6 towers in Moscow, and he knows because he used to work on them and where they are. So, you guys, this is true. We talked about this last night.
We did.
Okay, we went over this last night. There are actually 7 towers in Moscow. Okay, here, let me pull this up so you guys can know what I'm talking about here. But there are 7 towers in Moscow. However, there are 3 towers that are for public use. 4 of those towers are private network towers. They are the GXM or GX network.
They're just for emergency services.
Yep.
Meaning
law enforcement.
No public. Nobody in the public is connecting to those towers.
Correct.
So they don't matter.
Exactly. The only towers that matter are public towers. They don't cell phone companies are not even allowed to support personal users and subscribers on those emergency use towers. You will never be connected to them, ever, never. They are specifically for government. So he's right, but with a stipulation, right? He's right with the stipulation that there are only 3 towers. There are only 3 towers.
Dara, that's a really interesting thing to bring up, that the university would not be a closed network. Absolutely. It would be an open network Wi-Fi, I'm sure, at, the university.
Yep.
So that would be interesting if they, look to see if Bryan Kohberger's phone ever connected to their Wi-Fi.
Okay, here we go, you guys. So, and I will share this video once again, like we do. So this is the first cell phone video that we did. Okay?
And it's a banger, man. There's so many times we refer back to it because the information in it is still relevant and good. Like it's the best. It's the best cell phone video I've ever seen done on this case. And I know I'm biased, but I think it's the most informative, and it's actually somebody who knows what they're talking about.
And here you go, you guys. So if I do this here, okay. This is how their 3 towers work, by the way. Okay. So there are only 3 towers in the area. On each tower, there will be every carrier Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, okay? They share towers. Basically, one company will purchase the land rights and build the tower, and then all the other carriers will rent from them. All right, so let me find this, and this is what a triangulation looks like that we drew the other night, right? So if you only have one of these connections, then you're going to be limited to being able to see someone in this. This is like more than 50 square miles, you guys. And we're talking about round trip time in here and how that's calculated. I think I have.
Did you show all the towers though? The closed network.
I'm trying.
You just take a long time to get to the point.
This is one closed network tower right here. Okay. Hang on. So this is the personal tower, personal tower, personal tower. This is
public
or public tower. Yep. And this is a closed network tower up here, but there's more. Hang on.
This is a banger video. Absolutely.
I think that's it. Yep. Okay. You guys see this here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's a 7th one up here.
Is it not on the map right now?
No, because it gets blocked by these, so they only show in an overlap. But these are all private.
The red ones, yes. 4 of them are private.
Yep. And I gave FXO. Why was I thinking GX? It's FXO. This is the transmitter frequency, you guys, for those non-public frequencies. Okay.
Okay. So,
and just as supporting evidence, so you guys know that I'm not making it up. Okay. Those towers, these are the frequencies listed. FXO. This is for government and health and safety and things of that nature. Nobody can connect to them. Nobody.
So it looks like somebody was saying that Kohberger manipulated his GPS because he knows how to due to his formal education. Is that an easy thing to do, to manipulate your GPS?
No, you can't. So
we talked about this actually last night. GPS, what is it called again?
Yep, we talked about this in length last night. So for everybody, a lot of people
spoofing.
A lot of people think they can turn on a VPN and that VPN shows like your location, and that's not true. That is not true. It only shows your location for your network carrier that you're using, okay? There are 2 locations on every device. There's an actual GPS location, which is a manufacturer piece of the device. Okay. So if you have an Apple phone, that GPS chip in there was bought, installed, and managed by Apple. But then the SIM card in your phone is managed by AT&T. Now you can have a VPN, and that VPN could make you look like you're anywhere in the world, but the background application data is still going to give your area. So like just an example on YouTube, you guys, so like we can see on our analytics, somebody's like the cities where somebody is watching our videos from for the analytics. And then it also allows us to see like VPN locations depending on what screen you click on.
Right.
You always have 2 locations. So they would have experts enough to know how to pull that.
Right. They would know how to pull the genuine location.
Yeah. There is only one way to truly spoof, and you would have to have access to that computer in front of you in order to piggyback a computer to then make it look like your device is where that other device is. It's a very hard thing to do, and you need to be able to connect the two in front of you in person.
Yeah.
There is a point to using a VPN, because 99% of people out there don't know how to see the actual location. Unfortunately for some, fortunately for a lot of others, law enforcement does. Like YouTube, you guys, when you sign up to YouTube, you agree to all the fine print of YouTube. So YouTube uses your analytics, it uses your demographics, because YouTube is Google, okay? And Google is going to own the world. A lot of people are worried Apple is. No way, Google's taking it over, dude. Google has all the analytics, all the demographics, all the background application. When you agree to use YouTube, even if you're on a browser, okay, that browser connects to your device. So that browser will use the network IP VPN location on the network, but it's still giving your GPS location.
Yeah.
So
you got a question right there.
What?
About a Faraday bag.
Would a Faraday, and Jack asks, Brendan, would a Faraday bag cover up the phone communication with no trace of manual disconnected from the network, then removed from the bag and back in zone with no record of activity? Yes, a Faraday bag will block everything. Absolutely, absolutely everything. But when you block that device, no matter what it is, the network sees that it drops from it. So an example, a lot of content creators out there are saying things like Bryan Kohberger turned off his phone during the time of the crime, right? Well, that's not what the PCA says. And now I don't believe everything the PCA says, but the PCA says Bryan Kohberger's phone stopped communicating with the network at this time. It does not say that his phone was turned off. Could that be that it was placed in a Faraday bag? Yeah. Could it be that he was outside of the range of service? Yeah. Could it be that he put it on airplane mode because his phone was dying? Yeah. Could it be? Who knows? It could be a whole bunch of different things. But yes, what you're thinking about the Faraday bag is true. It will stop all connection, all of it. So if someone's trying to call you, it would just go automatically to voicemail, because it wouldn't be able to find your phone on the network.
So, with the Wawa Park being an area where cell reception is not good. We know because Twizzle went driving out there. We know because there's many reviews saying that you don't get any cell reception in the Wawa Park area. We already knew the service was bad in this area, in the Pullman Moscow area. How could GPS location end up being more reliable than cell tower? Do you think that's what the expert's going to rely on? Is that going to be more reliable in this situation than cell towers? And how can we tell?
I have a feeling that everyone's leaning on this cell phone tower data. And this is one thing we've talked about now in length before. So when somebody's talking about a cellular network or a cellular network specialist, nobody says RF technology specialist, okay? But when you're talking about GPS, that is where you traditionally hear RF technology. Now, is cellular technology technically radio frequency? Yes, it is on that huge, massive radio frequency scale of what frequencies are on the table of frequencies. Yes, it is. But whenever you read up, whenever you're doing research, whenever you're looking into cellular technology, nobody calls it radio frequency, okay? But they always call GPS radio frequency technology. So with the expert, I think a lot of people think, oh, well, cell towers are radio frequency technology. So this person is probably talking about the cell phone triangulation, where
I don't think anybody thinks that. I
mean, I know they
only
do.
that,
I've heard multiple.
Yeah, only that one guy was saying that, and people are saying cell phone because it literally says they're using his phone.
Yeah, but again,
so they're just assuming. I don't think people even understand that whole RF thing.
I think that they are making assumptions to the RF thing, because yes, a lot of people are talking about that expert talking about his triangulation. I personally think that expert is going to use geo-blended data, which is a mixture of his cell phone tower triangulation, his GPS location, his Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and metadata in applications. A lot of Asian. I do not think he's just going to come up there and give a breakdown of cell phone triangulation, you guys.
No, I'm saying
I don't believe
because there's a lack of cell phone triangulation. Is he going to give us just GPS? Because that's what I'm hearing being said, is that because there's no cell service in the area, and also because cell triangulation, historical location data is junk science, and GPS is superior, they're going to be using GPS, not cell tower data. That's what I'm being heard said.
I personally hope they use everything.
So you're saying GPS isn't superior?
No, one is not more superior than the other.
And I also asked you,
they're different sciences.
I understand that. But in this specific location, is there a way for us to tell if GPS is better in this area than cell tower? Like, can you look at the amount of radio towers there are? Like, what's a way to tell?
Not really, no. And the reason why you can't do that is because GPS is so finicky. Like, everything impacts your GPS signal. Like I said before, literally just a body, a human body in between your device and the GPS signal will impact it. Just a body. Now imagine a mountain range. Imagine trees. Imagine houses. Imagine other frequency technology in the air. A lot of things are going to get in the way of it, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, elevation impacts GPS. That's what Brendan is saying.
So everything. Does weather. So does the overcast nature of the night.
The fact that it was cloudy that night is going to affect it. Absolutely.
Yes, it sure will.
So with GPS location, can it look like you're in one area, but you actually be 30 miles away with GPS?
Yeah. I mean, you can do GPS spoofing, but
no, I mean on accident. Like, we're talking about how with cell triangulation in the old 3G days, you could be like 30 miles away from a tower. And
for cellular technology.
With GPS, can it be the same thing? Where it looks like you're this far away?
No. Not as long as the satellites are functioning correctly and using multiple bases, because it's called I always forget this term, and am I going to get it right? So I got it. Okay, I got it. GPS technology uses not triangulation, trilateration. Okay,
right.
Where it uses the lateral distance of the GPS signal with the device, where the GPS will come down to the base station. It will calculate how quick, again, similar to an RTT time, how quick it gets to the device, while using the lateral location services of the device down. So you're getting like a horizontal triangle mixture of location services.
Okay, that doesn't really answer the question, though, because...
What do you mean?
I mean, how off can it be is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I got you. So it can't put you somewhere else without going out of your way to spoof it.
So it's always accurate.
No. Okay, so it can be accurate down to 12 inches, but depending on the coverage in the area, depending on the weather, the trees, all these things, it could also come back saying, you know, because of these multitude of factors, we can only locate him down to 1 square mile. We can only locate him down to 1 square mile. But yeah.
So what? And then anything past a mile, you can't.
It's going to depend on what's going on in the area.
I just feel like you're not answering my question.
I am. You're asking how precise can it get?
No, how imprecise could it get?
Okay, so same type of question. It cannot read. It cannot pick up. So what I'm saying is you have 3. It's not going to give you a false location, but it could not give you a location. You could not have GPS connection.
Okay. So you just wouldn't have connection.
Correct.
Okay.
So no information. And there's a multitude of things that impact that. But with perfect signal, GPS is more accurate with perfect signal.
GPS is?
Yeah. With perfect signal. Yep. But, you know, how likely are we to get perfect signal?
Matt said, I worked in satellite communications when I was in the military. If the device has GPS capabilities, it can receive signals from GPS satellites to determine its precise location, unlike cellular towers.
Yeah.
So basically, as long as it has a connection, like you were saying, then it can give a precise location. It could be a little off.
No. Just because it has a connection does not mean you're getting a precise location. That's why I said, depending on a multitude of factors, it could be down to 12 inches precise. It could be a single square mile. And so we went into this in depth in our GPS video, and I'll post it on here. Okay, so I'll just give you guys the rundown real quick so you can understand what I'm saying again. Okay, satellites are up here, okay, in the air, and here's all these cell phones down here under it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So satellites are precise, and satellites are so accurate. Do you remember why?
No.
Because of its clocks.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Satellites are so precise because of its clocks.
Mm.
It has a special clock on it that will never be 1 second out of sync in time for, I forget what it was. I think it was like 4 million years or something like that. But it's the clock that makes it precise. And so it tracks time down to hundreds and thousands of seconds, okay? Now, that satellite sends a true radio frequency out at the speed of light, you guys. It's just under the speed of light. We're talking millions of miles per hour, okay? And it shoots a radio wave down to the tower on Earth, and that tower shoots it over to the devices, and it makes a trilateration to give you a pretty precise location of the area. However, GPS shoots like this. Look. The radio frequency shoots in pulses. So if you're traveling and you have GPS signal, each time that pulse gets to your phone, let's say in 1 second, it has great coverage. There's nothing blocking it. And then 30 seconds later, there is it's overcast and you're driving through a mountain range, okay? So that one ping, I guess you could call it, because everyone understands what a ping is with how everyone's talking about it. So the one ping would be precise, and then this other one would not be precise. Now, your phone and the satellite are creating insane mathematical problems in the background in supersonic speed. So it's going to take both of those pings, and it probably had a wave of frequency to your phone, 1,000 times in a second or something like that. And it's going to calculate an average of probability of your location. So based on not having very good coverage, the probability of your location grow because it's not precise and it doesn't have good coverage? Yes.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, it does. It does help me understand it better. I guess I'm just thinking of it kind of like cell towers, and you were telling me, the distance basically that a cell tower can go. And I guess like satellites and GPS just don't work that way.
Quantum entanglement doesn't have anything to do with GPS, but quantum entanglement is like one of the most interesting things.
It's very fascinating.
It is so interesting, and it has a lot, people are tying quantum entanglement with subconscious, you guys. Did you know that?
Really?
So, and I'm going a little bit off topic here. So they just found out in science that thoughts have substance. Okay. So when you think of something, you are creating a substance, you guys, that is measurable. Now, a lot of people have, or a lot of scientists out there have theorized that quantum entanglement could include our own memories and thoughts. Now, what could that be entangled with? Of course, it would have to have an equal and opposite, right? So I would assume that memory would only be able to quantum entangle with another memory out there. Now, does it have to be on Earth? Are there aliens out there that their memories are a similar substance?
Oh, this is a heck of a
Because
tangent.
remember, quantum entanglement doesn't follow the normal guidelines of science, okay? It travels through space and time. It ignores reality. It ignores time. It ignores the speed of light. Like it ignores all of the all of the relative theories to our current known science. Interesting.
It is interesting.
I love it. But quantum entanglement wouldn't necessarily impact the GPS signal, though. But interesting question for sure. Like, could it theoretically impact one wave because there's something weird going on? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? We don't know anything about quantum entanglement. Like, we are literally infants when it comes to quantum entanglement.
Okay, so you pulled up that study, and did you even really explain why cell historical data is not like junk science?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you actually explain that?
I went through why some people out there are mistaking this idea that it is junk science. Because listen, this right here, you guys, I forget where I read it, but hang on.
This is in a totally different country, by the way, this study.
It is, and I believe it was written in 2019, okay? 2019, when we still had a 3G network that would go 50 miles, okay? Now, in 2019, this is okay. So I guess I can go into a little bit of that too. So this is basing its data off of an open network system. Just remember, you guys, make sure you're keeping it family friendly, okay? Please, family friendly. If you guys want to talk about more adult topics, join the Discord, you guys. But for the show, okay, this is a family show. So even our best followers out there, if you make us, we will have to remove you, okay? Because the family friendly PG rating comes first. Okay, so going back into this here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is talking about Denmark. In all of Europe, they have an open network cell phone, an open cellular network. And what I mean by that is in Europe, you can walk into a gas station and take your phone from America, okay, a phone that you bought in the US, and go over to Denmark and go in a gas station and buy a SIM card. You can then put that SIM card in that phone and that phone will work.
Okay.
In the US, you cannot do that. All of the networks in the US are subscription-based cellular networks.
Oh, so they just have to buy a SIM card. They don't have to buy a subscription?
Correct.
I'm
That's
jealous.
Correct. Yep, that is correct.
And
And
the US sucks.
I think it's the US and Australia are the only two that do it. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the US and Australia are the only two subscription-based services.
You know, that's funny because I was watching this content creator from Africa. They live in Africa, and they had to go buy a SIM card.
Yep.
And I was like thinking, you had to go buy a SIM card? I was so confused.
Yep. Yep.
But I think in Africa, you can only use it for so long and then you have to buy a new one.
Yep. But okay, so not only is this basing its information and data off of an open network, right? Which we are a subscription-based network service here. You can't just go buy a SIM card, pop it in, and your phone's going to communicate it with the network. You have to literally have a subscription and account. And then once you pop your SIM card in, that SIM card communicates with the tower. The tower says, you know, let's find if they have a subscription with us. Okay, they do have a subscription with us, so they can make phone calls and they can send text messages, all right, and use data, whatever. So the data in general here is going to be a little bit skewed on top of it, because in Denmark, they use a single type of cellular network, the GSM network, GSM technology. You know, in the US, we have two. We use GSM and we use CDMA, two different technologies.
What's the difference?
What
do I use? Like, how do you know what you use?
It's not worth going into the background science of it, because they effectively work the same now.
Is one iPhone and Android?
No, that has nothing to do with it. It is hang on. Let me think. I got to figure this out. It is I think I'm going to get this wrong. I don't remember if it's AT&T. I don't remember which one is CDMA. It's either T-Mobile, AT&T, or Verizon. One of them is CDMA network, and the other two are GSM network. So nobody can tell the difference anymore.
So it has to do with the carrier. Okay.
Yeah, it has to do with the carrier and kind of how that technology works. But now that we're in 5G, ultra capacity, madness, tons of data going, you can't tell a big difference anymore. For a long time, you could with VoIP, voiceover, you know, but not anymore. And for anyone suggesting we do continue research into the towers in this area, we're going to, you guys. We're just going to use basic OSINT though. So OSINT is what we saw in the Garrett discovery, right?
Okay, right.
So that's open source intelligence. So open source intelligence are things that you can find from your basic search engines, right? Okay, so now another thing in this here, you guys, is this is including 3G because it was created in 2019. And 3G might still be around in Denmark right now.
I just want to start a question.
With 3G, though, you have a distance in network connectivity up to like 50 miles, you guys. 50 miles. So in a situation like that, if 3G was still around, right? And with 2G, it goes even further, you guys. But if 3G was still around during the time of the crime, could Bryan Kohberger theoretically be connected to a tower and be 50 miles away and 10 towers in between him? Yeah, in theory, he could. There would have to be a lot of mistakes for that to happen, but it did happen. We saw that happen, okay? But there is no more 3G. So now our phone service goes roughly about 10 miles. Very roughly, you guys. A lot of them only go like 4 miles. So a lot of the information in here doesn't hold true anymore.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's important because even if the cell data in this specific case is going to be junk, it doesn't mean that it's junk science and never works.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. And that's why I wanted to come out and talk about this. That's why it was so important for me to talk about this, because like, you know, Get a Clue has done amazing content and we've bantered back and forth and everything. And it's been a good time. I think that Get a Clue is truly looking for the answers. And when he went looking, I'm sure he went out there and started, you know, using search engines and things like that. And search engines betray you in technology because technology evolves faster than search engines or the internet can keep up.
Yeah. And I know Get a Clue cares about the truth. Usually if he's ever proved wrong or somebody tells him is wrong, he's fully open to admitting it from my experience with him. And if not, then we can agree to disagree. But
yeah,
I think this is important.
I think we're like that with everyone. About.
Yeah,
and
we are.
I think that's a really important thing also. Oh man, you know what? Someone gifted a membership. I apologize. You gifted that so long ago, Speedy Bird, and I didn't recognize it. I apologize for that. And thank you very much. Very, very much. We
just
appreciate
gets to gabbing and he can't stop.
True. Absolutely
just can't stop.
True. Yes.
But yes, thank you so much, Speedy Bird, for gifting a membership.
That is the truth and the light and the way. And hang on here. Oh no, I still have that open. All right. And matcha. So thank you, Lady Bird.
So we got a couple interesting questions.
What?
I need to be able to pull up the starred things when you're done. What? You asked people what their favorite food was?
Yeah.
56% said hamburger? What? I would have voted ice cream. Twinkies did not get a lot of love. Neither did hot dogs. I said hot dog because of Brendan. I think you guys are going to have to wait till Halloween for us to dress up again. It's got to be a thing now, though, right? Every Halloween.
Yeah.
You guys, we got hated on so much for dressing costumes and talking about true crime during October.
I mean, I get hated on
people loved
anyways.
So
but
many
like,
people loved it, though.
Yeah, so many people loved it. But like that, I'm not I'm not complaining. It doesn't bother me at all. I am the bad cop. Okay. You should hate on me. But what I'm saying is, that happens already. So like the using the costume was just like additional opener to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to make it seem like we were doing something like weird.
Yeah.
How dare you for wearing that? You obviously were meaning something adult about it. Like,
Yeah,
dude,
because I was a
out of here.
I was a cat and you were a hot dog. It was so not planned that way.
No,
at
I'm
all.
pretty sure I responded to that person was like, you know, I didn't even realize that
I
until
didn't-
you said that.
I didn't either. I didn't
But it's
either.
funny.
So, right here.
What?
So Ariel said, can you explain how RF technology would explain why the state's alleged route home in the PCA for Bryan Kohberger is wrong?
So can you explain how RF technology, so I'm going to change that to cell phone, because look, the PCA is using triangulation.
Yeah, but how could RF technology make the cell phone wrong?
Okay, hold
triangulation
on. Can you
wrong.
explain how RF technology would explain why the state's alleged route home in the PCA for BK is wrong?
Yeah, how could RF technology debunk the cell phone triangulation?
Yeah, I got you now. And first off, I want to say that so RF technology is going to depend on who you're talking to and how loosely they're using that definition, because a lot of people are saying RF technology for cell phone triangulation, even though nobody calls it that ever. When people are talking about RF technology, they're talking about GPS. But is cell phone triangulation and cell phone networks radio frequencies? Yes, it is. But classically, it's just not called that. But so going into your actual question here, how can it help explain why Bryan Kohberger's route home is not true? There's a lot of ways that they can do it. Okay, so RF technology is another word for geo-blending technology, and geo-blending technology is a mixture of any and all cell phone connectivity, GPS connectivity, background application data, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and things like Share on your iPhone and Samsung. So using all of that, your phone is essentially a sponge at all times. So as you're driving down the road, it is like sponging, picking things up like, oh, there's a device here. Oh, there's a device there. Oh, there's a device there. Oh, there's a device there. Well, if any of those networks were opened enough for his phone to actually communicate with it, there might be something in the background, coding or whatever, that they could highlight and say 100% confirmation that he was in this area at this time because his phone tried to connect with this device, and this device we can prove was in this area at this time. Now, that's just one example. Another example on top of that is going to be pictures, metadata, background metadata. If Bryan Kohberger took pictures while he was on a hike, those pictures have metadata that give the exact time on it, the exact GPS, Latin long, and what device took the picture, literally everything, what your settings were on your camera, everything, okay? Now, another one is, let's say Bryan Kohberger wanted to track how far he was walking. So he had an app that was for hiking to count your steps. If he had that on, then he would also have background application data on that too, because in order to track your steps, it's got to be able to locate you.
Okay, but if you're in an area with no service, how is the longitude, latitude being, recorded in the metadata of a picture, or, like, how is that happening?
So it's pretty rare that you're in an area that doesn't have cell service or GPS.
Okay.
Very rare. You're going to have some kind of
Location.
connectivity. It might not be precise.
Yeah.
but you're going to have some kind of connectivity.
Okay, Rolo, family friendly just means PG-13 language.
Yeah, nothing adult suggestive, like, you know, adult type stuff.
So Miss Smith said, can you explain how the cell phone data pre-arrest would be different post-arrest once investigators have the physical phone? Is there a good faith reason the data could be different now versus the PCA?
Oh gosh, that was one of my concerns also that we've talked about in length, is that so many people have reached out to us since our cell phone and GPS videos, because I don't think there's a lot of people out there that understand this technology or have done videos trying to give a rundown and explanation of how it works. And a lot of people have reached out and said, hey, you guys, they're doing a whole bunch of network updates in the Moscow area.
Yep.
So if they have the data dump, cast report, and information in that area, and then they're doing network updates to the towers, like increasing the reliability of those antennas, then it could change a lot. And that needs to be taken into account 100%, because if you have the data, the triangulation, you need to do the in-person driving verification ASAP, as soon as possible, because towers can be updated like electronically, remotely, and they can be updated in person.
Exactly. And we've talked about this drive. We've talked about this drive test many times, and the concerns around the fact that the defense only has only had a draft up until this point.
Yeah.
And
so it's shady, right?
Yeah. Did they do the drive test early on? And you're telling me it took over a year to do the peer review? No, I'm sorry. It doesn't take that long. Not in a case like this. No, it wouldn't take that long. They know this needs to be done as quickly as possible. I don't believe that.
It feels inauthentic for sure.
It definitely does to me. I've gotten some comments when I've talked about this before saying it's notoriously a lengthy process. And I agree, it's lengthy, but we're talking over a year past the point of when the state said they were ready for the trial.
Yeah, I'm
so
curious
that makes me
why
feel like
it's lengthy.
So do you think, going back to what I said before, has Bill Thompson realized there's no way to prove that he stalked the victims? There's no way to prove Bryan Kohberger was in that area 12 times previously, and that's why he said he was ready to go to trial, because he didn't need the cast report, because he knew it was BS, because he knew that they couldn't prove it. Even with a cast report, he was probably told that by the FBI. Like, look, we can get you a cast report, but it's not going to tell you much. It's not going to be as precise as you're looking for. It's not going to prove what Payne is saying and claiming in that affidavit. So is there a reason they had the cast report completed finally? And are they going to show something other than the 12 times and the stalking? Like, what? There's got to be something here. Something. But I really genuinely think Bill knows that he can't prove the stalking, and that's why he was harping on it in court. Yeah,
I think that's a very good question. I think that's a very good question, you Rose, about that, because me being a salesperson, you guys, I've been in sales my whole life, as most of you know, but for any of the multiple new viewers, which we love, and we are super stoked that you're here with us. I read body language. That's my selling style. There's like 16 types of selling styles out there. Yeah, I won't bore you guys, but I read body language and micro expressions and how people are interacting with me in front of me based on their body language. Now, when I watch Bill Thompson in court, so the first few hearings, the dude was confident. He was really confident.
It changed significantly.
Strong. Like he knew what was up and knew what was going on. And the last 4 or 5 hearings, Bill is like a mouse.
Yeah, I agree.
Really, to the point where I feel bad for him. I feel like he needs to go get somebody to teach him how to the sales techniques.
It's
For real.
I genuinely think he is not confident in his case. I really don't think he is. But somebody just asked, and I want to talk about what you said. If the defense has GPS location, why would they need CAS to exonerate BK? Well, one thing is that the GPS can be a part of CAS.
Yeah.
It's any location relating to a cell phone. It's any location relating to a cell phone. So it could be, they could use that theoretically, which is why we talk about geo-blended data. And that is like the best case scenario is either you're in a city with tons of overlapping cellular cell towers, or you have this geo-blended data from background app data and GPS, which would be really good. So, I mean, the CAS could be that. It could be that. And it almost makes me wonder, is the draft of the CAS report what Payne did, and then the real CAS report is going to be the Wawa Way Park thing, and that's why it's being held back from the defense, and Ann knows that.
It could be. I'm having an ADHD moment. I forget what CAS means.
Like,
isn't it cellular analysis surveillance team or survey team? Okay,
something like that. So one thing that I was kind of thinking about and playing around with in my head is, what if Payne's thing isn't the draft? Like, what if he did his whole thing and then the CAS report draft was the alibi? Is that, or that it was inconclusive? Like, look, we can kind of put him south of Moscow, but not very precisely. And that's why it remained a draft, because the FBI was like, this isn't looking good. Like, we can't actually do a real CAS report here. Yeah. But then the court or somebody asked them to complete it. So they were like, okay, we'll do it. What if the CAS report is more exculpatory than inculpatory? And that's the issue. I don't know. It's just food for thought. I have no idea. It just makes me wonder. Like, I feel like there is something to the CAS report being so delayed. I feel like there's something to that.
Yeah, because that's not common. Just to let you guys know, I've heard quite a few people say that's really common. No, it's not. Not at this length of time. It is not. It is not common. This is way long.
Yeah, because they need to do that drive test ASAP. They need to go in the field and test what they mapped out to see if it's real. Like, they have to test it in real time, boots on the ground. And that needs to be done quickly, because if they don't do it quickly, then you're dealing with all the updates to the network, and it's going to slowly get less and less true to the way it was at the time of the crime.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do want to play a couple clips of some things Andrea said. But we try really hard not to play clips, but there's two small ones I want to play of what Andrea said on a recent sidebar with Jesse Weber, because I think it can it's a launching pad for a good conversation.
Yeah, we'll play him we'll keep him short. What's it under?
This is it.
Okay, so I'm surprised she went back on there again.
If they found something contradictory to the PCA, they're not supposed to be able to keep that hidden. That's actually illegal.
Where
if they find exculpatory evidence, they have to turn it over. Yeah, okay, it's that. So go into 18 minutes.
On the dot?
Yeah, I think so. 18 minutes should be good.
Okay.
Because the probable cause affidavit revealed that Kohberger's phone GPS, they pinged at or near that house on King Road, the crime scene, at least 12 times before November 13th. Now, police say that every one of those pings happened late at night or in the early morning. And by the way, the cell phone data was consistent with that movement of the Hyundai Elantra, However, it's interesting because prosecutors have come out recently and said, we aren't making the argument that Bryan Kohberger was stalking the victims beforehand. But it seems like they were very specific in the defense's filing to say he was out all these times driving, not going near the house on purpose, right? But that he was out and about for different reasons. I just think that's so interesting in light of what the prosecution has said recently, that they're at least, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that they're not going to argue that Bryan Kohberger was stalking the victims.
I agree with that. And I think that it's important to remember that this stalking allegation, it originated in the probable cause affidavit. And like you pointed out, it was derivative from these pings that the law enforcement was tracing between his phone to the tower that serviced the King Road residence. And the inference that the probable cause affidavit asks you to draw is they were investigating the possibility that he stalked them, and then they discovered all of these pings. I think the issue that we have with this theory that the state has now walked back from is that a single ping to a cell phone tower really does not give you a whole lot of information, because the range of the cell phone tower can be massive. It can be something like, anywhere from 10 miles to like close to 50 miles away. It's not a precise measurement that shows you exactly where somebody is. There can be exceptions to that in areas where there is very dense cell tower coverage. And in those situations, they can sometimes triangulate position off of multiple towers. But that's not really the type of cell environment that we have in this extremely rural area out here. So the only real precision that you can get from single pings in this type of situation is you can show it moving out of the range of one tower into the range of another tower. And so over time, single pings can potentially show movement of a cell phone within these, large range distances. And that's part of what the probable cause affidavit also discusses when they're talking about those later morning movements between near Blaine, Idaho, down to Genesee, and then back up towards Pullman. And so that's likely how they're doing that. But as far as a single ping to the King Road tower, it really doesn't give you very specific information. So that does suggest that the prosecutor, without any kind of additional evidence that would corroborate a stalking theory, like seeing them on social media, like, being able to place them in the same place at the same time, they don't think that perhaps this is precise enough that they're going to be able to establish that.
What did you think?
No, I think it is really, 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 really good. And what's interesting is, and I'm not trying to give us credit, but the last time she was on with him, she talked briefly about cell phone technology, and she was off, not way off, but kind of off on what she was saying. And
this time was better.
Yeah. And we sent her our video, and I just as a suggestion to be able to understand kind of how the cell phone technology works. And like right now, she's killing it. She is so on point. The only thing I don't like, and this is just me being picky and dumb, is I hate when people use the term ping when you're referring to cell phone technology, because again, traditionally the word ping is used for GPS technology and how that works, not necessarily
everyone says cell phone pings though.
It's specifically a GPS technology thing because of how it's like choo, choo,
so
choo
what are you
works.
supposed to say?
And cell phone data connection isn't a ping that is sending out data. It is a constant data stream of layered data sources. So it just,
you just say cell phone connection.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's just me being lame and picky, you guys. Like, ping works. It's fine.
Right. That's just like, I feel like a social term.
The only reason why I bring up like the complaint about ping is because the nature of this case has been so jumbled and manipulated and like intentional mix-ups. So when I'm listening to things, my number one concern is like, hey, we need to keep real information and mixed information separated. So like if we're going to be focusing on GPS, let's make sure the GPS terms stay with GPS and the cell phone network terms stay with the cell phone network terms, so that when people are watching this and the jurors are in court, they're not getting mixed up between the two, because the two are very different. Very different. GPS is RF technology and it utilizes pings specifically. Like, those are terms that are relative to GPS. On cell phones, cell phone networks are traditionally not called RF technology, even though they function on the radio scale. And it's not traditionally considered pings when you're talking about your network connectivity.
Okay, so one thing I want to say is I am very in awe that Jesse Weber had Andrea Burkhart back on after she slayed him like a dragon last time.
I mean, he was just very controlling and strange.
He even complimented her at the end of this, you guys, and he says, "Thank you for coming back on." He said, "You explain and break down this case better than anybody that I've ever seen." And I was like,
that's awesome.
Is he crushing on her? Did she like dominate him into submission?
It was the other way.
I'm
Let's
just
be
kidding.
real here. He was kind of controlling and crappy to her, I think.
I understand the conversation.
The first time.
I understand the conversation kind of felt that way, but she still killed it.
Yes,
like
she
was
did.
spitting facts the whole time.
No, when it comes
Even
to
if-
objective data, she killed it. But like, as she was trying to give her objective data, he was just like trying to force it back into a subjective
like
box.
a guilter. That's like that whole guilter thing.
Yep.
That is like, I wish people would leave that behind you and be more objective.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be like a pro burger that's like, you need to feel like Kohberger's innocent or I'm gonna pound it into you.
She
Or I
she
don't
can
want
be
to
better than me.
I don't want to be
Everyone can be better than me.
Yeah, no, she's a lawyer. That is her
Yeah.
expertise. And, you know, I think that she has purposefully tried to learn about the cell phone technology because she cares about it. Clearly.
Yeah.
Clearly, she cares to
Absolutely.
learn about it. And that's why she knows all of this. There's a couple things, like little tiny things that she's wrong on. But again, this isn't her expertise. This is something she's learning secondary to law to keep up to date, you know, and what's going on. And her knowledge was very thorough for not being someone who's in that field, like
Yeah.
very thorough. And if she watched our video, that's awesome. I'm glad that she learned something from it if she
Yeah.
did.
For sure.
But I felt like, so her explanation, she talks about the time that he's in Johnson and Genesee and going back up to Pullman. That's the time period that I am very specifically concerned with
Okay.
because it's so vague in the PCA.
Yeah.
The time after the crime, it is so vague when he's going back to Pullman with the tower pings.
I mean, look, all of it's vague. I won't know until I can see the evidence. So I don't know.
It's really interesting. And that's the time he's supposed to be like, you know, the crime and after that is when he's supposedly driving around this park.
It's so shady that the defense doesn't have literally one of the biggest. You guys, I've said this for a long time. I believe that the cell phone evidence is the biggest, me personally. But I trust this. As long as I see the right data and information and they have a really good location bead on, you know, the background GPS or geo-blended data mixed with cellular network data, I trust that more than anything.
Okay, so I agree. The second part I want to get into is specifically about the expert, because Andrea
Okay.
goes into details about the expert that I think are important and that we need to have a conversation about.
Okay.
So go to about, it's after the BetterHelp ad. It's about 23 minutes in, sometime after that. I don't
Right
have a
here?
very specific timestamp. No, I'd go a little bit further.
Right here.
We'll try that. If we need to go forward a
Prosecution.
little
I
bit,
do
we
wanna
can.
ask you about Cy Ray though, because
Right here.
again, it seems to me that this alibi defense is relying a lot on this potential expert called by the defense. Now, my understanding is that Mr. Ray is a 20-year law enforcement veteran. He's worked over 1,000 death investigations. He's been an expert witness, testified in over 100 cases, including cell phone analysis. Having said that, NBC has reported that Mr. Ray, who founded this company called ZX, his credibility has come into question. And there was one case in particular where he was called to testify, and this district court judge, Juan Villasenor, said that ZX's tracks mapping could not come into court, that it was inadmissible. It said there was a sea of unreliability. The judge wrote, quote, "For one, the court doesn't find Ray credible. He inflated his credentials, inaccurately claiming to be an engineer." The judge goes on to say that Ray has no qualifications, licenses, or credentials to support saying that he was an engineer. Now, maybe that was a specific issue, but I found it interesting that, you know, his credibility called into question. But he's very well known in the industry. He's appeared, I think, in documentaries and different series. What do we take, or what do you know about Mr. Ray and him being a potential key witness for Bryan Kohberger?
Well, I think you're right that his law enforcement background is really pretty significant here, because this technology that he did develop, this tracks software system, this has been used by law enforcement all over the country. And yes, there's this case in Colorado where the trial court refused to admit it. There have been other cases, however, that have reached the opposite result. There's a federal decision, I believe, out of the Sixth Circuit reviewing a Daubert hearing that was held on it in that case, that upheld it as being a valid technique to use in court. I did go and look through that opinion. I read that opinion that excluded his evidence, and I did find some of the criticism to be just honestly a little bit strange. Inflating credentials, I think, that's legitimate. You know, you should not do that. You should be pretty precise about what your qualifications for something are. So that would certainly raise a concern if he were to repeat something like that in this case. But in terms of his actual technique, the criticism was basically that he had done a massive amount of observational work to collect data to look at what actual transmission from towers was. And what this is doing is it's reconciling the mathematical, abstract ability to calculate what a theoretical range of coverage would be with what you actually see happening on the ground. Because in the real world, everybody knows there can be interference with radio signals. That can be heat can affect it, temperature, gamma rays, just all kinds of different atmospheric conditions can affect the real world measurement. So he had done something like 2.5 million measurements to get all of this observational data, from which he was then able to derive this mathematical principle that showed him, if you map the cell tower coverage this way, that is going to be the most accurate way to actually depict it. The trial judge didn't like that at all. His criticism was, well, this isn't based on any type of scientific principle. You can't explain the mechanism for it. There's no theoretical underpinning for it. And I find that quite strange for a couple of reasons. I mean, first off, the entire school of electromagnetics was accomplished this way. It was accomplished by Maxwell going out and obtaining a bunch of observational data and deriving mathematical constants from it. So it's a peculiar criticism of the scientific method in that sense. But it's also problematic to me because forensic techniques are routinely allowed into court that have significantly less observational validata than Mr. Ray's method does. An example that I would use would be something like ballistics, where the standard is simply whether the technician believes that there is sufficient agreement between the item that he's examining and the like test piece or something like that. They never tell you what sufficient agreement is. There's never been an observational study that would give you that type of validation, give you error rates or things like that. So just given the sort of mess, the criticisms of a lot of forensic science in general, to me, this particular opinion seems to be an outlier.
Then again,
That part about him saying that about
All
Judge
right.
Judge.
So,
He basically goes on to say, well, Judge could end up agreeing with that judge who called Ray not credible.
yeah. So,
When
says, $4.99 super chat. We appreciate you. I wanted to make sure this finished before we paused it and gave you a shout out. So I'm sorry it took so long. But how does the defense prove Bryan Kohberger's phone was traveling with him and not anybody else on 11/13 besides the established pattern? Thanks and love your show. Thank you, and we love that you're here with us.
yes, thank you very much.
Listen, this, in my opinion, how often are other people traveling with other people's phones? For one, okay. For two, there would have to be a co-defendant. So in order for them to bring up this argument that, somebody else could have been carrying his phone, that somebody else, once he was arrested, would have been like, whoa, that's the night I had his phone. What was going on? And that person would have came forward and talked or whatever. So it doesn't seem or feel very likely. I understand that it doesn't make it impossible. It is a possibility, just very, 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 very rare. And understand that there would have to be enough time for him to be able to give his phone to somebody, go to Moscow, come back to that area and get his phone back, and then travel back around through the bottom of Moscow. We need to look at that time, but I think to Huawei was like 30 something minutes. So you're looking at least at a couple hours.
Okay, so here, theoretically, let's say Bryan Kohberger left his apartment, drove down the block to a friend's house, and he knew they were going to Huawei to try to catch the meteor shower that night. And he taped his phone to the bottom of their car to make it look like he was going that way, but he was actually going to commit this crime. Let's say he thought that far in advance and did something like that. Then the person who is driving with Bryan Kohberger's phone taped to the bottom of his car would have their own phone, which if the cops are doing cell tower dumps and things like that, don't you think they'd be able to see these two phones are together?
Yeah, they would. Yep. Data mining. Yep.
So then they would already know there's a co-defendant.
Yeah.
And they haven't alleged
possible, but I don't think we've seen the Huawei evidence. So
we haven't.
He might have a 6-digit pin on his phone, and they never got that evidence specifically. So I don't know. I don't know
either.
Have to look, but I mean, that would be a substantial manipulation and control of the scene. That doesn't feel very likely, but is it possible? Absolutely.
Anything's possible, though. So going back to this, like I said, Jesse goes on to say that Judge could agree with that judge who ruled against Ray and called him not credible. And basically we'll have to see. And Andrea argued, that judge's determination was an outlier compared to all the other cases that Ray has been a part of, and he has been a prosecution expert witness in all of them, and considered very credible by many judges, and has been in many different, shows. And she went into the science of him collecting data and things, and why this judge was criticizing him, saying it basically his findings weren't scientifically sound or rooted.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. And I've said that. How many creators have come out and said that this is junk science now? And I'm not taking stabs. I just don't think they understand it. It's not. You're not getting false location services. That's impossible. That is impossible. Even what Andrea was saying about the geothermal, the heat, cold, electrostatic, the static energy in the air. I forget what that other word is for it that causes static from the rotation of the earth or whatever. Look, Does that affect it? Yes. Does it affect it a lot? No. Very minimal.
Yeah.
Like very
And
minimal. What's going to impact it more are mountain ranges and
right.
cars and copper and things of that nature. She was talking about very, very things that impact it very minimally.
And let's be real. I mean, LexisNexis purchased ZX.
Yeah.
Like it was purchased by the feds basically to use. So, I mean, and it's been used a lot.
It sure has.
It has been used a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So I think saying that, you know, he's not credible because his whatever, you know, technology he developed is not credible according to one judge out of tons of judges and all the law enforcement that have used it. Yeah, I don't think it's a good argument. I think that he is a very credible expert. And it's kind of insane to me that you have cops who are always wanting to back the cops coming out here saying this expert isn't credible when he's like a cop and a veteran and all of that. It's kind of funny. And he's never been a defense expert before. I don't know. It just kind of tickles me. I do feel like this expert would not take this case unless there was something up with the data.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd put his credibility on the line for this case
I agree.
if there wasn't something here. I truly do not. And Bryan Kohberger could still be guilty. But if there's got to be something messed up here for him to be willing to put his credibility on the line to be a part of the defense.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. I think that listen, you guys, we talked about the logical fallacies yesterday, and I can pull them up again if you want. But you know, one of the biggest logical fallacies that people fall into, like me all the time, is this thinking that because this is true, therefore this must be true from some kind of interconnected nature. You know what I mean? That Bryan Kohberger's DNA was at the crime scene, therefore he must be the killer. That is called a logical fallacy, okay? His DNA that can be carried through the wind was found at the crime scene, therefore he must be the killer. That doesn't make that true. That is a logical fallacy. The only way to determine whether he's the killer is evidence proving he's the killer, not evidence that there is a piece of him at the crime scene. That is the opposite of the scientific method.
Yeah, and even if his touch DNA got there somehow, some crazy way, which I mean, yeah, it seems.
And I don't think Bryan Kohberger's innocent, you guys, just to be clear. I haven't said that tonight. I have no idea if he's innocent or guilty. I'm not fighting for his innocence, you guys. I'm just fighting for a fair investigation. Sorry. And
I also don't understand, even though I don't immediately go to he was framed. That is not where my mind goes, is he was framed. It's could be tunnel vision, could be cops willing to get a conviction at all costs, a prosecutor willing to get a conviction at all costs. And it not be a straight up frame job. But I do think that it is irresponsible and illogical to suggest that a frame job is impossible when we know it's possible. When it doesn't even actually make sense to plant his DNA on the sheath. It actually makes sense to manipulate it in the lab. That's what makes sense. And these are state police labs, okay? So I don't know. I think it would be very easy to say, well, this is the DNA that came from the sheath.
Yeah.
And it actually wasn't the DNA that came from the sheath.
Look, I agree with you. What's really interesting.
If we can mix up babies in labor and delivery, we can mix up DNA samples.
Yeah. What's interesting from a scientific perspective, from an objective perspective, is you have all these experts that claim they're experts, or content creators, or people out there that look at people that believe Bryan Kohberger is innocent. And remember, I do not believe Bryan Kohberger is innocent. I have no idea. I haven't seen
Agree.
nearly enough. I haven't even seen 10%
Ugh.
enough evidence to make a determination. But there are these people out there that believe that the people that think he's innocent are bananas, that are bonkers, and need to feel like they're against the grain or smarter than other people. And that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, everything in the world should be led by science, because our own human emotions, our own human drives are gonna lead us wrong every single time. Our subjectivity is a danger to humanity in ourselves. Okay, I think it's always beneficial to reel it back in and redirect to objectivity, right? Take the emotions out of it. Is okay, someone's saying this happened. Okay, what is the supporting evidence that this happened?
Well, part of the problem, I think, when you're in true crime and you have people who are like a guilter, is they feel like if they were to not be that way, they're dishonoring the victims in some way. And I just don't think that's the case.
That is wild.
like the Gonzalez family like I said, they get a pass from me. I am very empathetic to their experience and know that they're
Agreed.
going through something so horribly tragic and painful.
Agreed.
And they should be treated with the most
Respect
care
and
and respect
understanding.
and understanding of
Yeah.
that they are in grief,
Yeah.
and they are allowed to be emotional.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
allowed to not be logical.
Yeah.
That is their right.
I agree. They're allowed to make mistakes. So if they're acting,
Right.
in an uncommon way, or what some people would say suspect or anything like that, look, they're allowed to, dude. They're going through such a traumatic event that nobody should ever have to go through. That kind of trauma does things to you that nobody could explain unless they're in that situation themselves. And I don't know. I just think it's the human thing, the right thing to do, to be understanding. And
Right. But here's the thing. Here's my issue is you can be empathetic to them without supporting and backing things that aren't logical. Like,
yeah.
I feel like there's an echo chamber around them, and they keep it that way because they're obviously emotional messes right now. But if you're only telling them what they want to hear and not what they need to hear, then you're doing them a disservice. You're adding to them feeling like they're being screwed by the system. You're adding to them feeling like, Ann Taylor's this demon, like you're adding to all these feelings that are making them feel wronged when they may not be being wronged in the way that they think they are. You're feeding those negative feelings, and I feel like it's not fair to them. And I feel like it's not right, and that's not how you need to be empathetic in a healthy way to somebody, and sympathetic. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I think that if we're being real here, you don't have to feed those delusions to like be kind to somebody, like telling somebody that going against them, disagreeing with them is not being mean to them. If somebody's hurting and are really emotionally hurt and they're saying something that's wrong or doesn't make sense, telling them, that doesn't make sense is not wrong. Like, you're not being mean. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just feel like the family has been, everybody has gone out of their way to give them this bubble of an echo chamber. Everybody has gone out of their way to manipulate them in certain ways. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they need to be really careful about who they talk to, who they listen to, and make sure they're not only keeping people around them that are just telling them what they want to hear.
Yeah. In my opinion, the only respectful thing to do is truth, 100% truth up front. That's how people get over things. The idea that like, well, I don't want to tell them because I don't want them to hurt. All that does is make the hurt tenfold. Okay. In how I look at it is I respect people by giving the truth. by being transparent. People that, you know, people that aren't, clearly there's something going on personally where they feel like they either need to hide themselves, hide whatever they have going on in life, or whatever, and that doesn't help anybody. All that does is cause more issue. So, you know, when I'm looking at this crime, I have a drive to seek the truth in the investigation because I feel like that's more respectful for the victims' families than just giving them a quick, easy win because it's easier.
Right.
It's easier to say, oh, Bryan Kohberger did it. Our town is safe. Yeah, that's the easy thing to do. But is that the truth? Is that honest? Listen, you guys, I am terrified of karma, and I am brutally honest with everything.
You know, I'll never judge the Gonzalez family. Even if they were out here spreading misinformation on purpose, I'm still not going to judge them, because they're going, again, through something very traumatic that is one of the worst things you could go through. And I think that they're not going to make solid decisions in that kind of mind space. And it is what it is. Like, if people want to like trust what they say with 100%, like it's a fact just because it came out of their mouth because they're the family of the victim, that's on you. Like, I'm not going to just trust what they say because of that. I'm going to question it. Like I would question what anybody says, because in my mind, they're equal to everyone. They just get a bit of a pass because of their grief.
I think that's a fair point,
I just don't
Matt.
judge anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fair point, Matt. But you know, trauma does such horrible things to people and changes people's perception of any situation, that no matter what's said, it's like what Malia's saying, whatever is being said, just because they get a pass doesn't mean we agree with it, right? I just understand. I have no idea.
I don't agree.
I have no idea
but
what it's like to go through something like that. But I would tell you right now and know for 100% certainty that I wouldn't be myself. I would not be making sound decisions. I would not be very logical. I would not be very objective. I would be probably doing anything and everything if I felt like I could make things move of a fraction, a 16th of an inch, you know? So I try and take that into account in those situations. Though just the one thing I worry about is the echo chamber, because again, it's the convenient thing to just believe Bryan Kohberger did it. In my opinion, they should be waiting to see the evidence to believe whether he did it or not. Because look, what if Bryan Kohberger gets convicted and 15 years down the line they have figured out to resolve their trauma and loss and have finally gotten to a place where they can manage it in some sort of normal fashion, and they have that itching in the back of their head, you know what I mean, that was he the right guy? Was he the only guy? Things aren't adding up now. Did the real person get out and free?
Or was there another crime that happened that looked just like the Idaho 4 crime? And you know what I mean? And
anything could spark
Matt,
that, but it sounds like torture.
Matt, I agree with you. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here, is we don't know what information they're being fed behind the scenes. And it appears that Steve truly believes he's being fed reliable information. Those Steve G texts are real, you guys, in my opinion. Allegedly, don't come for me. You know, but from everything I've seen since we talked about those texts, they're real. From everything I've seen, and there's more out there. So I just want to say that I think Steve and the families have been fed a lot of information, and there's a lot of information they think is reliable that I don't know if they actually know that it's genuinely reliable or not. They're just going to believe it is because of they they look at him like he's the guy who did it, and they hate him for it, which makes sense.
You got to remember the you got to remember the demographics of that area. You got to remember the age that they're a part of. And I don't mean that in some kind of ageist fashion. Okay. Certain generations have certain generational behavioral traits. Okay. And that generation tends to have a lot more trust in the judicial system than the next generation, and even less in the generation after that. Okay. So taking that into account, I think they're automatically going to have more trust in the judicial system and the prosecutor and the police and the judge. And then in that area, it sounds like, based on all the evidence and research we've done, that they're very separated from their local politics, which then makes it even harder in situations like this, where they're like overly sensitive to what's going on in the area, to be able to question it.
I'm sorry, but think about your daughter being brutally murdered, and the cops come out with this evidence and say that's the guy that did it. And they're claiming they have DNA. They're claiming they have cell phone triangulation. They're claiming they have him on video. You really think they're not going to assume that it's him no matter what? They're going to fixate on it because that is the closure. That's the blame. Humans need to blame somebody. They need that sacrificial lamb to put all that blame on, to put all their hatred and anger and hurt into, so that they can feel like they got vengeance. You know what I mean? To feel like they got justice.
Yeah.
Humans do that naturally.
Yeah.
So I do think we have to give them a pass, because the police are telling them it's Kohberger, and I think they're going to believe that no matter what. I can't even imagine a family doubting. There's very few cases where when police have said that's your guy, the family was like, "Oh, are you sure?" I don't think so.
Wait, what? There's a lot.
There's a few, but it took a while. Like, for instance, Christopher Tapp, the mom did believe it was him until she started seeing the interrogation tapes and things like that. And then she became Christopher Tapp's biggest advocate.
Yeah, I think
with the amount of evidence they're claiming to have in this case, there's no way they're going to doubt it.
I don't agree, but I think that if you're an objective person who can somehow figure out how to look at the situation without looking at it from a traumatic emotional standpoint,
that's the whole argument, is that they can't.
I don't agree. I don't think everyone would just put their whole faith into law enforcement. Science and statistics prove that judicial trust is inherently generational. There are generations that trust the justice system way more than others.
That's true.
That doesn't have anything to do with age. It's just generational behavioral traits.
It's what you're taught.
The time of war and how your parents' character and traits were and things like that. Like, those come into play. There's no way around it.
Yeah, our generation significantly doesn't trust law enforcement the way, older folks do.
But that
true.
Is it, you guys, for the True Crime Talk Show, brought to you by Thought Riot Podcast.
And I fully understand everybody's concerns. I truly do. But yeah, justice for the victims, But we want real justice.
Hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you guys leave a comment under the video. If you have not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Turn on your notifications. And one thing to remember is, if you turn on notifications on your cell phone, it doesn't mean you're going to get notifications on your TV or your tablet or your computer. You have to turn each of those on separately. So I just know a lot of people say that they don't get notified or whatnot. That's how you get notified. So, hit that thumbs up, hit those 5 stars, hit those 3 stars on the other one. For anybody that wants to engage in the chat, we are always chatting on the YouTube side of things. So you could always come over to YouTube and search Thought Riot Podcast, where I don't know how many we have, like 400 people on YouTube, I think, versus the other couple thousand. But YouTube, the chat is awesome, and everyone on here is awesome. So I just suggest you guys come and chat in YouTube. You don't have to. We love our viewers that don't want to engage in the chat too, and we appreciate all of you. And just keep doing what you're doing, because you sharing the content, you talking about it, let family and friends know, and we're going to continue to grow, you guys. Yeah, just turn on those notifications so you know when the next video is coming. We do one video every day right now, one live every day, and hopefully we'll get back into our normal routine. I don't know if all of you were on before, but it is confirmed we got a new studio building for the growth of the channel, so it's gonna be awesome. But the closing day is gonna take like 45 days, 60 days, something like that, for the sale to be finalized and all loans, payments, things to go through on it. So yeah, we appreciate you all.
We do. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thanks for all your questions and input and feedback. Yeah, don't forget to leave a like on your way out, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.